Hello and welcome back to the Sleepy Rider channel. I hope the last video, the one about Harley Davidson, gave you a genuinely good sleep. Tonight, we're going somewhere very specific, and I want to get you there quickly. Honda has built more than 400 million motorcycles, not 400 million total vehicles. 400 million motorcycles alone. By the time you finish listening tonight, somewhere on this planet, several hundred more will have rolled off a production line. That number is so large, it stops meaning anything the normal way numbers mean things. So let's hold on to that thought and come back to it. For now, just let yourself settle. Get comfortable. There's nothing you need to do tonight except listen. And maybe drift off somewhere along the way. The Honda Super Cub is the single best-selling motor vehicle in the history of the world. Not the best-selling motorcycle. The best-selling motor vehicle in any category that has ever been manufactured by anyone, anywhere. More than 100 million Super Cubs have been produced since 1958. A number that exceeds the total production of any individual car model ever made, including the Volkswagen Beetle and a Ford F-Series truck. The Super Cub was designed with a specific and deliberately simple philosophy: it should be operable by anyone, require almost no mechanical knowledge to maintain, and be inexpensive enough that ordinary people in ordinary circumstances could afford it. It succeeded at all three, and in succeeding it changed the daily lives of more human beings than almost any other single manufactured object of the 20th century. The man behind Honda was not an engineer in the conventional sense of someone who studied engineering in school. Soichiro Honda was a mechanic. Born in 1906 in the small Japanese village of Kamio, his father was a blacksmith who repaired bicycles on the side, and Soichiro grew up in a household where things were fixed with hands rather than purchased new. He left school at 15 and moved to Tokyo to work as an apprentice at an auto repair shop, where he discovered that he could understand engines intuitively in a way that formal study had never been required to produce. He went on to race cars himself, crashing severely in 1936 in an accident that broke his wrist and left him with injuries that affected him for the rest of his life. He walked away from racing after that, but he never walked away from engines. The understanding of what an engine could and couldn't do that he built through those racing years shaped every motorcycle his company would later produce. The Honda company itself was not founded to make motorcycles. In 1946, Soichiro Honda founded the Honda Technical Research Institute to develop a small auxiliary engine that could be attached to a bicycle, allowing it to be propelled without pedaling. The engine was originally a war surplus radio generator engine that Honda acquired cheaply in the immediate post-war period when such things were available in large quantities at low prices. He adapted it, attached it to a bicycle frame with a fuel tank made from a military water bottle, and the resulting machine sold quickly because fuel was expensive and distances were long in post-war Japan. The demand for the device was strong enough that Honda built his own engine the following year, and the company was officially incorporated as Honda Motor Co., Ltd. in 1948. The motorcycle, in other words, began as a solution to a specific practical problem in a specific historical moment, and the company that grew from that solution became one of the largest and most diverse manufacturing enterprises in the world. Honda's first truly successful motorcycle, the D-Type Dream of 1949, was a 98cc two-stroke machine that introduced a feature that had not been seen on Japanese motorcycles to that point: a pressed steel frame rather than a welded tube construction. The pressed steel frame was less expensive to produce and more consistent in quality than tube welding, which required skilled labor to execute correctly. The choice of manufacturing method reflected a principle that would define Honda's engineering approach across the following decades. The best solution is not necessarily the most traditional one, and the constraints of production cost and consistency are engineering problems deserving the same quality of attention as the mechanical performance of the machine itself. The D-type dream was followed by the E-type dream in 1951, which used a 146cc overhead valve four-stroke engine and introduced another principle that would define the company. The four-stroke engine, despite its greater complexity, produced a smoother and more reliable power delivery than the two-stroke, and Honda committed to it at a time when most competitors were focused on the simpler two-stroke configuration. The name Dream, which Honda applied to its first motorcycle series, was not a marketing decision made in a conference room. Soichiro Honda chose it personally because he believed that the machines he was building represented, for ordinary Japanese people in the immediate post-war period, a genuine expansion of what was possible in their daily lives. To be able to travel further, faster, and more independently than walking or cycling allowed was, in the context of 1949 Japan, something that the word dream described accurately rather than extravagantly. The name carried a weight of specific, sincere meaning that was easy to miss from a later historical distance, but that Honda understood with clarity at the time. He was not selling a product with an appealing name. He was giving a name to what he genuinely believed the product meant. Soichiro Honda entered his motorcycles in the Isle of Man TT race in 1954. He went to watch, took notes, spoke to no one in particular about what he had seen, and returned to Japan with a specific and detailed understanding of exactly how far Honda's motorcycles were from competitive at the highest level of international road racing. He returned home and told his engineers that Honda would win the TT within 5 years. The engineers, who had seen the same gap between Honda's machines and the European competition that Honda had seen, were not uniformly convinced this was a reasonable timeline. Honda entered the TT in 1959. His riders finished 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th in the 125cc class. In 1961, Honda motorcycles finished 1st and 2nd in both the 125cc and 250cc classes. The 5-year timeline had been accurate within a small margin. This pattern of Honda setting a specific and apparently ambitious target, committing the company's resources to meeting it, and then meeting it on or near schedule, would repeat itself across the following decades in contexts ranging from racing to fuel economy to emissions reduction. The targets were not arbitrary. They were the product of careful analysis of what was actually possible and a willingness to pursue it with systematic determination. If you've been here before, you already know what this channel is. If you're new, subscribe and find out. These long, unhurried facts are here every time you need them. The Honda CB750, introduced in 1969, is the motorcycle that changed the industry so fundamentally that the period before and after its introduction are genuinely different eras of motorcycle engineering and culture. Before the CB750, large displacement motorcycles were typically single or twin-cylinder machines with drum brakes, separate gearboxes, and engineering that traced its lineage to the 1940s and 1950s. The CB750 had 4 cylinders in a transverse inline configuration, a single overhead camshaft, a 5-speed gearbox in a single unit with the engine, a front disc brake, and an electric starter. It produced 67 horsepower and weighed 218 kilograms, giving it a power-to-weight ratio that made it faster than almost anything else on the road at any price, and it was priced accessibly enough that ordinary riders could buy it. The CB750 did not simply outperform its competition, It redefined what a motorcycle was expected to be. And the machines that every manufacturer produced in its wake bore its fingerprints for decades afterward. It is not an overstatement to say that the modern motorcycle, in its fundamental configuration, begins with the CB750. The process by which Honda decided to build the CB750 involved a specific competitive pressure that is worth understanding. British motorcycle manufacturers, primarily Triumph, PSA, and Norton, had dominated the large displacement motorcycle market through the 1950s and into the 1960s, with twin-cylinder machines that had enormous cultural cachet and genuine engineering quality. Honda's management recognized that competing with the British twins on their own terms by building better twins was a strategy with a limited ceiling. The twins were good and the culture around them was well established. The alternative was to make the question of British twins irrelevant by creating something so different in its capabilities that the comparison became meaningless. The four-cylinder configuration achieved this. When a customer compared a CB750 to a Triumph Bonneville, the comparison resolved quickly and in Honda's favor on almost every measurable dimension. The Bonneville's cultural prestige and riding character were real, but they could not compensate for the gap in power, reliability, and specification. Honda had not won the argument about which twin was better. They had ended the argument about twins entirely. The Honda Goldwing, introduced in 1975, has evolved over nearly 5 decades into one of the most comprehensively equipped touring motorcycles ever built. But its beginning was entirely different from what it became. The original GL1000 Goldwing was a sport touring machine with a flat-4 engine, a low center of gravity, and a chassis that was intended to offer handling superior to the large touring machines of the era. It had no fairing, no saddlebags, and no onboard audio system. It was a sporting machine for riders who wanted to cover distance quickly and comfortably. The transformation of the Goldwing into the full-dress touring behemoth it became happened gradually through successive generations. Driven by customer demand and the discovery that the Goldwing's smooth, flat-engine configuration was ideal for carrying the weight of full touring equipment without compromising the machine's handling character. The current GL1800 Goldwing has a 6-cylinder engine, an available dual-clutch automatic transmission, an airbag as standard equipment, and a full complement of navigation, audio, and comfort technology. It is a machine whose relationship to the original GL1000 is conceptual rather than literal. Both are Goldwings. The word carries enormous accumulated meaning. The machines it describes are separated by the full distance of the motorcycle industry's evolution across half a century. The Honda CBR 900RR, known as the Fireblade, was introduced in 1992 and represented a specific engineering philosophy articulated by its designer Tadao Baba with unusual clarity. Baba's stated goal was to produce a motorcycle that was as light and compact as a 600cc machine while producing power comparable to the 750cc class. He called this philosophy the total control concept, meaning that the machine's power should always be within the rider's ability to manage it, and that the relationship between rider input and machine response should be as direct and immediate as possible. The Fireblade achieved this with a 893cc inline-4 engine in a chassis that weighed roughly 40 kilograms less than competing 750cc machines of the era. The combination produced a motorcycle that was faster around a circuit than anything previously available from a factory, not because it had the most power, but because it had the best ratio of power to weight and the most direct chassis response. The Fireblade introduced a design philosophy that is now standard across the sports motorcycle industry, the primary engineering goal is not maximum power output, but minimum unwanted weight. Because weight is the enemy of every dimension of dynamic performance simultaneously. The Honda Repsol livery, the orange and red color scheme that has appeared on Honda's factory MotoGP machines since the mid-1990s, is one of the most recognized racing color schemes in the world and has been worn by some of the sport's most significant riders. Mick Doohan, who won 5 consecutive 500cc World Championships from 1994 to 1998, wore the Repsol colors during the height of his dominance, and the specific orange of the Repsol Honda became visually synonymous with championship success in a way that persisted through the careers of subsequent Honda factory riders. Valentino Rossi won 2 of his 9 world championships on Repsol Hondas before his long tenure with Yamaha. Marc Marquez, who has won 6 of his 8 world championships on Repsol Hondas, is the rider whose career has been most completely defined by the orange and red, and his relationship with the Honda RC213V across the 2010s produced some of the most technically extraordinary riding ever recorded in the sport. The color carries history in the specific way that sports colors carry history, which is through the accumulated emotion of the moments when the people wearing them did something worth remembering. The Honda RC211V, the 5-cylinder MotoGP machine that Honda introduced in 2002 when the governing body changed the rules from 500cc 2-strokes to 990cc 4-strokes, was possibly the most technically sophisticated racing motorcycle ever built for public competition up to that point. The V5 engine configuration, in which 3 cylinders were arranged in a forward bank and 2 in a rear bank, was chosen because its specific firing order produced a power delivery character that Honda's engineers believed would be more manageable and faster out of corners than the even firing intervals of a conventional 4-cylinder engine. The RC211V produced somewhere in the range of 220 horsepower at a time when traction control and electronic rider aids were minimal by contemporary standards, meaning the riders were managing the power delivery themselves through throttle skill rather than relying on electronics to prevent the rear wheel from spinning. Valentino Rossi won the MotoGP World Championship on the RC211V in 2002 and 2003. The machine's combination of power, sophisticated engineering, and the riding talent that campaigned it produced a period of Honda factory racing excellence that remains a reference point in the sport's technical history. The town of Hamamatsu in Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan, is the city where Honda Motor Co. was founded and where its early production facilities were established. Hamamatsu has a specific industrial character that distinguishes it from other Japanese manufacturing cities. It is the city where both Honda and Yamaha were founded, as well as several other significant Japanese industrial companies. The concentration of manufacturing talent and culture in Hamamatsu was not accidental. The city had a tradition of precision craft manufacturing, including musical instruments and textiles, that predated the motorcycle industry, and the workforce that the early motorcycle companies drew from was already skilled in the kind of detailed, precise work that engine manufacturing required. Yamaha's presence in Hamamatsu, growing in the same city as Honda from roughly the same industrial tradition, created an early competitive dynamic between the two companies that shaped both of them through the 1950s and into the 1960s. The competition was not just commercial, it was personal in the way that competition between neighbors is personal. And it drove both companies to capabilities they might not have reached in the absence of a rival close enough to watch and measure themselves against. The Honda CB1100, introduced in 2013, is an interesting case study in deliberate anachronism. Honda designed the CB 1100 to look like a motorcycle from the early 1970s, with a round headlamp, a 4-pipe exhaust, a simple instrument cluster, and an overall visual character that referenced the CB 750 and its contemporaries. The engine was air-cooled, a choice that in 2013 was technically retrograde compared to the water-cooled engines that provided better thermal management and emissions performance, but that Honda chose specifically because air cooling is visually simpler and more honest than the plumbing of a water-cooled system, and because it produces a specific sound and vibration character that differs from a water-cooled engine in ways that some riders strongly prefer. The CB 1100 was not pretending to be a 1970s motorcycle. It was a contemporary machine built to provide a riding experience that modern sports and touring machines, in their sophistication and electronic complexity, had moved away from. It was Honda acknowledging that some things that had been refined away from their motorcycles were things that some riders had not wanted refined away. The specific sound of a Honda 4-cylinder inline engine at high revs is one of the most distinctive auditory signatures in motorcycling, recognizable to anyone who has spent time near the machines or has ever watched motorsport where Honda engines were present. The inline 4 at high RPM produces a mechanical scream that is often described in terms that reference musical pitch rather than mechanical noise, a shrieking, rising wail that climbs through the audible spectrum as the engine approaches its red line. This sound is the direct consequence of the firing frequency of 4 cylinders at high RPM, where the mechanical events of combustion are occurring so rapidly and so close together in time that they blend into something that the human auditory system processes differently from the discrete sounds of engines at lower speeds. Honda's engineers have managed this sound deliberately across generations of inline 4 engines, with specific attention to the exhaust pulse timing that gives the sound its particular character. The sound is not a byproduct of the engineering. It is, in a meaningful sense, part of the engineering. The Honda Africa Twin, originally introduced in 1988 and revived after a long absence in 2016, has a name that came from one of the most significant achievements in off-road motorcycle history. The original Paris-Dakar Rally, which began in 1978 as a race from Paris to Dakar in Senegal across the Sahara Desert, was dominated by Honda factory teams through the 1980s, with Cyril Neveu winning in 1980, 1982, and 1986 on Honda machines. The NXR 750 Honda that competed in the Dakar Rally was a purpose-built competition machine with limited relationship to any production Honda, but the cultural capital accumulated through those victories was real and transferable, and the Africa Twin was produced to bring that capital to a street-legal, customer-accessible form. The revival of the name in 2016, for a machine that was technically entirely different from the 1988 original, but spiritually continuous with it, reflected Honda's understanding that the Africa Twin name carried genuine accumulated, meaning that a new name could not have inherited, by any means other than earning it, which would have taken years the company did not want to spend. The Honda RC30, known formally as the VFR 750R, was produced from 1987 to 1992 in limited numbers specifically to homologate the machine for superbike racing. Homologation rules of the period required that a machine sold to the public in sufficient numbers was eligible for competition in a class defined by its specifications. And manufacturers built road-legal versions of their racing machines specifically to meet this requirement. The RC30 used a V4 engine with gear-driven cams, a chassis derived from Honda's factory endurance racing machines, and a level of engineering detail that was essentially unrelated to anything Honda sold through its normal dealer network. The gear-driven camshafts produced a distinctive mechanical whine at idle, and through the rev range that became a defining characteristic of the machine, recognized immediately by anyone who had spent time near one. The RC30 won the World Superbike Championship in 1988 and 1989 with Fred Merkel. The machine is among the most valuable production motorcycles Honda has ever made, with examples in good condition commanding prices many times higher than their original sale price. Subscribe to the Sleepy Rider channel. If you find yourself here regularly, make it official. The facts keep coming as long as you keep showing up. The Honda CRF 450R, the company's flagship motocross machine, operates in a class of motorcycle that is about as far as it is possible to get from the Honda Super Cub while remaining within the same manufacturer's range. Where the Super Cub is designed for maximum accessibility, minimum maintenance, and all-day practical comfort. The CRF 450R is designed to be ridden at maximum intensity by skilled athletes for short periods, maintained by experienced mechanics at frequent intervals, and rebuilt substantially after every competitive season. It produces approximately 60 horsepower from a 449cc single-cylinder 4-stroke engine, weighs around 111 kilograms, ready to ride, and generates forces on the rider's body that require specific physical conditioning to manage safely. The distance from the Super Cub to the CRF 450R is a measure of the breadth of Honda's engineering capability. The ability to design with equal competence for an elderly person in rural Vietnam who needs reliable daily transport, and for a professional athlete competing in one of the most physically demanding motorsport disciplines in existence. Both machines reflect a genuine and deep understanding of their respective purposes. Neither compromises for the other. The company that contains both has a specific kind of engineering breadth that few manufacturers in any industry can claim. The Honda Cub 110, the current iteration of the Super Cub family, is produced in factories in 12 countries simultaneously, including Japan, China, India, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and several others. The global distribution of production reflects the global distribution of demand, with each regional factory producing machines calibrated for the specific preferences and requirements of its local market. The Thai-produced Cub is slightly different from the Vietnamese-produced one, and both are slightly different from the Japanese original, in ways that reflect local road conditions, fuel quality, regulatory requirements, and rider preferences. This localized production model is itself an engineering achievement, requiring the management of a supply chain and quality control system of extraordinary complexity, while maintaining the essential character and reliability that have made the Super Cub what it is across 65 years of production. The machine that looks the same everywhere you see it is not quite the same machine everywhere it is made, and maintaining that consistency of experience while managing the reality of local variation is as sophisticated a manufacturing challenge as any engine design problem Honda's engineers have faced. The Honda VFR 800, which has been in continuous production since 1998 and whose V4 engine traces its lineage to the racing machines of the 1980s, is widely regarded in the motorcycle press and among experienced riders as one of the most balanced and capable all-round motorcycles ever made. It is not the fastest Honda. It is not the most comfortable Honda for very long distances. It is not the most off-road capable Honda, or the most sporty Honda, or the most practical Honda. What it is, with a consistency that has been maintained across more than 2 decades of continuous production, is genuinely excellent at everything it is asked to do. The V4 engine produces smooth, linear power across a wide rev range. The chassis handles both urban environments and fast mountain roads with genuine capability. The ergonomics are a considered compromise between the upright position of a touring machine and the forward lean of a sports machine. The VFR 800 represents a specific Honda philosophy: the total package matters more than any individual dimension of performance. And getting every dimension to a high level simultaneously is more difficult and ultimately more rewarding than maximizing one at the expense of the others. The Honda NSR 500, the two-stroke 500cc Grand Prix machine that Honda campaigned from 1984 through to the end of the 500cc class in 2001, was a machine so powerful relative to its weight that the riders who won championships on it are among the most skilled and most committed to have competed in any form of motorcycle racing. The NSR 500 produced approximately 180 horsepower from a 500cc V4 two-stroke engine in a machine weighing around 130 kilograms. The power-to-weight ratio was extraordinary by any standard, and the power delivery of a high-performance two-stroke engine at race tune, which arrives suddenly and intensely in a narrow RPM window rather than progressively across a broad range, made the machine demanding to ride at competitive pace. Mick Dohan, who dominated the 500cc class from 1994 to 1998 with 5 consecutive championships, reportedly spent a period of his career with reduced right-hand function following a severe crash, adapting his riding style and the machine's controls accordingly. The fact that he continued to dominate the class in those circumstances is a measure of both his exceptional ability and the degree to which championship motorcycle racing at that level selects for people with a specific relationship to difficulty. The philosophy that guided Honda's approach to the American market in the late 1950s was articulated in one of the most famous advertising campaigns in business history. The tagline, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda," created by Gray Advertising for the American market in 1963, was a deliberate reframing of the motorcycle's cultural associations. In 1963, the American motorcycle market was shaped by the outlaw biker mythology that had accumulated through the 1950s, and motorcycles were widely associated in American mainstream culture with marginal, threatening figures rather than with ordinary people. The "You Meet the Nicest People" campaign directly addressed and contradicted this association, showing motorcycles in the hands of students, housewives, and professionals, and positioning the Honda as a practical, respectable, friendly product. The campaign worked with an effectiveness that transformed the American motorcycle market, and its success opened the door for Honda's subsequent sales growth in the United States in a way that no amount of pure product excellence could have achieved on its own against the cultural headwind the brand faced in 1963. The Honda Monkey. First produced in 1961 as a ride attraction at a Japanese amusement park, has had one of the more improbable trajectories in the history of the motorcycle as a product. The original Monkey was a tiny, low-powered machine with small wheels designed specifically for use within the limited space of a theme park, not intended for road use or for sale to the general public. Visitors to the park enjoyed the machines enough that demand for street versions developed, and Honda began producing road-legal monkeys for sale in 1963. The machine has been in continuous production, with interruptions ever since, evolving through several generations while maintaining the essential character of a small, visually distinctive, friendly machine that prioritizes charm over capability. The current Monkey 125, produced from 2018, uses fuel injection and modern chassis engineering while retaining the round headlamp, small wheels, and compact proportions that define the visual identity of the model. It is purchased by people who are not looking for a practical commuter tool or a performance machine, but for a specific experience of riding something that makes the act of riding feel lighthearted. And Honda has been making this possible since 1963. The development of the Honda VTEC variable valve timing system for motorcycles, first applied to the VFR 800 in 2002, was a technical achievement that addressed a specific tension in high-performance 4-valve per-cylinder engine design. 4-valve engines breathe better at high RPM than 2-valve engines, providing more power at the top of the rev range, but the 4-valve configuration can produce less torque at low RPM than a 2-valve equivalent, because the smaller valves move less total air at low engine speeds. Honda's VTEC system solved this by running only 2 of the 4 valves at low RPM. Switching to all 4 valves at higher speeds when the engine's greater breathing demand made all 4 valves advantageous. The transition between 2-valve and 4-valve operation is managed electronically and is noticeable to the rider as a change in the engine's character that occurs at a specific RPM threshold. Honda's motorcycle VTEC system was derived from the VTEC technology the company had developed for its automobile engines, and its application to the VFR 800 was a specific example of Honda's ability to transfer engineering knowledge across its product divisions in ways that competitors without comparable breadth of engineering capability could not easily replicate. Let everything slow down for a moment. The engine note, the facts, the night. Honda's story keeps going because it is genuinely that long and that full, and there is no hurry in any of it. The Honda Dream 50 and Dream 90, small displacement overhead cam machines produced in the 1960s, established Honda's ability to manufacture sophisticated engine technology in small, inexpensive packages. Overhead cams on a 50cc engine in 1963 were not a necessity. A simpler engine design would have been less expensive to produce and adequate for the machine's intended use. Honda built them with overhead cams because the engineering culture within the company, established by Soichiro Honda's insistence on the highest technically appropriate solution rather than the cheapest adequate one, valued the superior performance of the overhead cam configuration, regardless of whether the application strictly required it. The Dream 50 became a sought-after collector machine decades after its production ended, partly because of its historical significance, and partly because of the specific mechanical elegance of a tiny, perfectly proportioned machine with an engine architecture that would not have been out of place in a much larger motorcycle. The proportion between the engineering sophistication and the physical scale of the machine is one of the things that makes it beautiful to people who understand what they are looking at. The Honda CB404, produced from 1975 to 1977, has achieved a reverence in the Japanese motorcycle collector community that exceeds its relatively brief production run and modest original commercial significance. The CB404 was a smaller displacement version of the CB504, itself a scaled-down CB750, and it produced a genuinely proportionate riding experience in a lighter, more manageable package than the CB750. In the Japanese domestic market, where a licensing system restricted the displacement that certain categories of riders could operate, the CB404 occupied a specific position as the most sophisticated machine accessible to riders who had not yet achieved the license tier that permitted larger displacement. The visual and mechanical elegance of the machine combined with its historical position in the evolution of the Japanese four-cylinder motorcycle, has made surviving examples in good condition increasingly valuable and increasingly difficult to find. A well-maintained CB 404 in Japan commands prices that reflect not just its scarcity, but the specific emotional and historical weight it carries for Japanese riders of the generation that grew up with it. The Honda MotoGP project that produced Marc Marquez's run of championships from 2013 to 2019, 6 titles in 7 seasons, is the most concentrated period of championship success by a single rider-manufacturer combination in the sport's premier class since Mick Doohan's 5 consecutive titles on Honda in the 1990s. Marquez's riding style, characterized by an extraordinary willingness to push the front tire to the edge of grip in a way that no other rider in the modern era has consistently managed, was in some ways specifically suited to the Honda RC 213V's characteristics and in other ways in tension with them. The RC 213V was never described by its riders as an easy motorcycle, and several riders who joined the Honda factory team after careers of success on other manufacturers found the Honda's demands more challenging than expected. The combination of Marquez's specific talent for managing front-end grip and the Honda's power and chassis characteristics produced results that seemed inevitable in retrospect, but that required a specific alignment of machine and rider that is rarer in practice than the championship. Total might suggest. The Honda XR650L, which has been in continuous production since 1993 with minimal change, represents an interesting engineering philosophy. In an industry that regularly refreshes models with new engines, new frames, new electronics, and new visual designs, the XR650L has persisted essentially unchanged for more than 3 decades. It uses a carbureted, air-cooled single-cylinder engine in a simple steel frame with conventional fork suspension and analog instrumentation. There is almost nothing on the XR650L that would be considered technically current by contemporary standards, and it sells consistently to a specific customer who values the simplicity and field repairability of a machine whose mechanical systems can be fully understood and addressed without specialized tools or proprietary diagnostic equipment. The XR650L customer is not looking for the latest technology. They are looking for a machine they can take to remote places and have confidence of returning from, and the accumulated evidence of 3 decades of XR650Ls doing exactly that without significant mechanical drama is the most persuasive argument Honda could make for the continued existence of the model. Some products survive not by being updated, but by being right for long enough that their continued presence becomes its own credential. The Honda Transalp, introduced in 1987 and discontinued in 2012 before being revived in 2023, occupied a specific position in the European adventure motorcycle market as a machine that was smaller, lighter, and more accessible than the Africa Twin, but that offered genuine mixed terrain capability rather than the primarily road-going character of the Werfer family. The Transalp's name referenced its intended environment, the alpine passes and mixed road surfaces of European touring, and the machine performed its intended function well enough that it developed a following that sustained it through 2.5 decades of production. Its revival in 2023, using a new parallel twin engine and modern chassis and electronics, reflected Honda's recognition that the adventure segment had grown to a size where a machine positioned below the Africa Twin in size and price had a viable and significant market, and that the Transalp name carried enough accumulated identity to give the new model a head start in establishing itself without earning the name from scratch. The Honda Rune, produced in limited numbers for the 2004 and 2005 model years, is one of the most visually unusual motorcycles Honda has ever brought to production. Designed as a concept machine made real, the Rune used a six-cylinder flat engine derived from the Goldwing, mounted in a chassis with a design that owed more to industrial sculpture than to conventional motorcycle styling. The exposed engine with its 6 horizontal cylinders, the long wheelbase, the stainless steel bodywork elements, and the overall impression of a machine making a specific and uncompromising visual statement combined to produce something that divided opinion sharply, but that was impossible to ignore. Honda produced approximately 600 runes across its 2 model years and has not repeated the exercise. The machine exists as an interesting footnote in the company's history, evidence of a willingness to commit significant engineering and production resources to an idea that was more about exploring the outer edge of what a Honda could be than about meeting an identified market demand. The Rune did not succeed commercially in any conventional sense. It succeeded as a demonstration that the company whose engineers had built the Super Cub was capable of imagining something that had no predecessor and bringing it to production regardless. The specific engineering of Honda's parallel twin-engine architecture, which the company returned to in the 2010s for the CB500 family and the Rebel range, reflects the discovery that the parallel twin, in its modern form, offers a combination of manufacturing efficiency, mechanical simplicity, and riding character that serves a broad range of riders well without requiring the complexity and cost of a 4-cylinder engine. The modern Honda parallel twin is a 270-degree crank engine, meaning the 2 pistons fire 270 degrees apart rather than the 180 degrees of the classic parallel twin, which produces a firing interval and exhaust pulse pattern that is significantly different from the even-firing traditional parallel twin, and that generates a sound and power delivery character that many riders find more engaging. The 270-degree crank produces a slight unevenness in the power delivery and a specific exhaust note that sits between the steady thump of a V-twin and the buzzing frequency of an even-firing parallel twin. This character has been well received enough that Honda has applied it across a growing number of models, and the engineering decision to specify 270 degrees rather than 180 degrees is a detail that most riders will never be consciously aware of, but whose effect on the riding experience is real and documented. The Honda Cub's handlebar layout, in which the throttle and front brake are on the right and the left handlebar carries only the choke lever and headlight switch, reflects a deliberate decision to simplify the controls for riders with no prior motorcycle experience. Conventional motorcycle controls place the clutch lever on the left handlebar, requiring the rider to coordinate clutch release with throttle application and gear selection in a sequence that new riders consistently find the most challenging aspect of learning to ride. The Super Cub uses an automatic centrifugal clutch that engages and disengages based on engine speed rather than rider input, eliminating this requirement entirely. The left hand on a Super Cub has almost nothing to do during normal riding, which means a person who has never touched a motorcycle in their life can learn to ride a Super Cub in a matter of minutes. This simplicity was not an engineering compromise. It was an engineering choice made with a specific user in mind. And the user Honda had in mind was not the experienced rider. It was the person who had never thought of riding a motorcycle until the Super Cub made it seem possible. The road is still going. The engine is still warm. Stay with it. the Honda Dream, the Cub, the CB750, the Goldwing, the Fireblade, the Africa Twin. These are not separate products from separate companies sharing a name. They are chapters in a single, continuous story about what an engine can be made to do when the people building it refuse to accept that the current version is the best possible version. Every generation of Honda engineers received from its predecessors machines that were already very good, and every generation of Honda engineers made them better. The improvement was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was incremental, measurable in small percentages of power output, or small reductions in weight, or small improvements in fuel efficiency. But the direction was consistent, and a consistency of direction over long periods is what produces the 400 million motorcycles. It is what produces the machine that is still being sold 65 years after it was first designed, in essentially the configuration its designer intended, serving the purpose its designer built it for. The story of Honda motorcycles is the story of what happens when engineering is taken seriously as a long-term practice rather than as a series of product launches, and when the people doing the engineering are allowed to work toward standards that exceed what the market currently requires. The night holds all of this without rushing any of it. Let the facts drift past like mile markers on a long highway, each one carrying something, nothing demanding to be held. There is more ahead, and the road is exactly as long as you need it to be. The Honda CB650R, part of the Neo Sports Cafe family that Honda introduced in 2018, represents one of the more considered responses to the neo-retro trend that has influenced motorcycle design across multiple manufacturers in recent years, where some neo-retro machines adopt vintage styling as a purely aesthetic exercise. Placing modern mechanical components inside bodywork that references a specific historical period, the CB650R attempts something different. Its design references the calf racer aesthetic of the early 1970s without directly quoting any specific machine, producing a visual character that feels connected to the past without being a copy of it. The four-cylinder engine at its heart is not hidden behind retro styling but displayed as a central visual element, with four individual exhaust headers emerging from the engine in a way that is unambiguously contemporary while referencing the four pipe exhausts of the CB750 era. The CB650R is a machine that knows its history and acknowledges it without being imprisoned by it, which is a more difficult design achievement than it sounds. The Honda SP1 and SP2, the machine Honda built specifically to compete in World Superbike racing in the early 2000s, demonstrated once again the company's willingness to build machines of very high specification and cost in limited numbers to achieve specific competitive objectives. The SP1, introduced in 2000, used a V-twin engine that Honda had not previously offered in a production motorcycle, developed specifically for the superbike class and homologated for competition by selling the minimum required number to the public. The machine required careful setup and skilled riding to extract its full potential, and it rewarded this investment with genuine superbike competitiveness. Colin Edwards won the World Superbike Championship on a Honda SP2 in 2002, completing a program that Honda had defined, resourced, executed, and brought to its intended outcome with the systematic precision that characterizes the company's competitive efforts. The SP machines were not mass-market products. They were instruments of competition that the public could purchase, and the distinction between those two descriptions is important in understanding what they were and what they were for. The way Honda's engineers approach noise, vibration, and harshness, the cluster of qualities that engineers in the industry refer to collectively as NVH, is among the most sophisticated in the motorcycle business. NVH management is the discipline of reducing the unwanted mechanical sounds and vibrations that an engine and drivetrain transmit to the rider and to the surrounding environment, while retaining or enhancing the sounds and vibrations that are considered desirable parts of the riding experience. The distinction between these two categories is not always obvious and is partly subjective, which makes NVH engineering as much an art as a science. Honda's NVH engineers work with acoustic measurement equipment, vibration sensors, and large teams of test riders to determine exactly which frequencies and amplitudes the rider should feel and hear and which should be suppressed. The result, in the company's best products, is an engine that communicates with the rider through sound and vibration in a way that feels like information rather than noise, and the difference between a machine where this has been done well and one where it has not is immediately perceptible to any experienced rider, even if they have no technical language to describe what they are noticing. The Honda Trail family, which includes the CT90, CT110, and their successors, has a cultural significance in rural Australia that is almost without parallel in the relationship between any single motorcycle model and any single geographic community. The CT110, produced from 1980 and used by Australia Post as its standard delivery motorcycle, became so completely identified with the Postal Service that it was commonly known simply as the Postie Bike. The CT110's combination of semi-automatic transmission, reliable air-cooled engine, and durable construction made it ideal for the stop-start demands of postal delivery, and Australia Post operated a fleet of them that at its peak numbered in the tens of thousands. When Australia Post began replacing the CT110 fleet with electric motorcycles and other vehicles in the 2010s and 2020s, the retired CT110s entered the civilian market in large numbers and were adopted by a community of riders who valued their simplicity, durability, and the specific cultural associations they carried. The Postie Bike is one of the most recognizable motorcycles in Australian history, and its recognition comes not from any sporting achievement or design elegance, but from the simple accumulation of decades of visible, daily, reliable service. Soichiro Honda's management philosophy, which he articulated in various forms throughout his career, was unusual enough in the context of Japanese corporate culture of the mid-20th century to be worth understanding specifically. Honda was a strong believer in what he called the three joys: the joy of producing, the joy of selling, and the joy of buying. He held that a product that did not produce genuine joy in the people who made it, the people who sold it, and the people who bought it was not meeting the standard the company should set for itself. This sounds like inspirational language of the kind that corporations routinely produce for internal consumption. What distinguished Honda's version was the degree to which he applied it to specific engineering decisions, arguing that a machine which was reliable and affordable, but which failed to produce joy in the person riding it, was not good enough, and that a machine which was joyful to ride but unreliable was equally inadequate. The three joys were not a marketing slogan. They were, for Honda personally, a design specification, and the machines that came out of the company while he was involved in their development reflect the specificity with which he applied the concept. The Honda RC213 VS, a road-legal version of the current MotoGP machine, sold to private customers for the 2016 model year at a price of approximately $184,000, is the closest that any manufacturer has come to selling a genuine factory MotoGP machine to the public. The RC213VS produced either 157 horsepower in its street-legal configuration or approximately 212 horsepower with a sports kit fitted, used electronics derived from the race machine systems, and was built in Japan to the same standard of engineering quality as the factory race bikes. Honda sold approximately 213 units. The buyers received not just a motorcycle, but access to a level of engineering that had won MotoGP World Championships in a street-legal form. The experience of riding one was described by journalists who were given access as unlike anything else available on public roads, not because of the power alone, but because the entire machine communicated with the rider at a level of precision and immediacy that consumer motorcycles, however sophisticated, do not replicate. The RC213VS is the definitive answer to the question of what Honda's MotoGP engineering looks like when you take it off the racetrack and ask it to ride on a road. Like this video, if you're still here and it's doing what it should be doing. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find the channel. The Honda CB500 family, introduced in 2013 with the CB500F, CB500X, and CB500R, represents Honda's most comprehensive response to the question of what an accessible, affordable, beginner-friendly motorcycle should offer in the contemporary market. The CB500 models use the 471cc parallel twin engine with a 270-degree crank, producing approximately 47 horsepower in a configuration that places them within the A2 license category across most of Europe, which allows newly qualified riders to operate them without the additional licensing requirements of larger machines. The CB500X, the adventure variant of the family, became particularly popular with new riders in Europe and has sustained strong sales for over a decade, establishing itself as one of the most recommended first motorcycles in the contemporary market across multiple countries. Honda designed the CB500 family with an understanding of what new riders need that goes beyond specification. The machines are predictable, forgiving of imprecision, capable of improvement as the rider's skills develop, and durable enough to survive the learning process without requiring costly repairs. This last quality is more important and more difficult to achieve than it might appear to someone who has never ridden a new motorcycle through the process of becoming competent. The Honda Rebel, known in most markets as the CMX series, has undergone a transformation since its 2017 redesign that has made it one of the most commercially successful entries in the cruiser segment globally. The original Rebel, produced from 1985, was a modest displacement cruiser aimed at new riders who wanted the visual language of a cruiser without the weight and power of a full-size machine. The 2017 redesign, which introduced the 471cc parallel twin engine in a chassis with low seat height, wire spoke wheels, and a visual aesthetic that stripped the cruiser genre of its traditional chrome and visual excess, produced something that spoke to a demographic that had not previously been strongly represented in the cruiser market: younger riders and urban riders who wanted the relaxed riding posture and low-frequency character of a cruiser without the specific American mythology that surrounds the traditional cruiser format. The Rebel 500's success led to the introduction of the Rebel 1100, with a larger engine and a more powerful machine, extending the range upward. Honda had found a way into the cruiser segment by redefining what a cruiser needed to look like to be desirable to a new generation, and the results confirmed the insight. The specific challenge of producing a reliable motorcycle engine that can be manufactured in very high volumes at very low cost without sacrificing the durability that defines the Honda brand, is the engineering challenge that the Super Cub's engine represents in its purest form. The Oak engine of the current Super Cub 110, which is a direct descendant of the engine Honda designed in the late 1950s, is one of the most thoroughly refined mass-market engines ever produced. Over 6 decades of continuous development, every friction surface has been analyzed, every material has been evaluated for cost and durability, every manufacturing process has been optimized for consistency. The result is an engine that can be produced at enormous scale with consistent quality that requires minimal maintenance in the hands of an owner with no mechanical training, and that will run reliably for distances that would have seemed extraordinary for a low-cost engine when the design was first established. The Super Cub engine is one of the great industrial design achievements of the 20th century, and its invisibility, the fact that it works so reliably that the person riding the machine never needs to think about it, is the highest form of success an engine can achieve. The Honda Goldwing's flat engine, the horizontally opposed configuration that has defined the model since the original GL1000, produces a specific characteristic that distinguishes it from every other engine type used in touring motorcycles. The cylinders of a flat engine are positioned horizontally rather than vertically, which means the major reciprocating masses of the engine. The pistons and connecting rods move horizontally rather than vertically as the engine runs. This reduces the tendency of the engine to produce fore and aft pitching forces on the chassis under acceleration and braking, contributing to the Goldwing's remarkably stable handling for a machine of its considerable weight. The low center of gravity produced by the horizontal cylinder layout further contributes to the handling stability. When a rider who has never experienced a Goldwing takes one onto a winding road for the first time, the disconnect between the machine's visual mass and the ease with which it changes direction is one of the most consistently surprising experiences in motorcycling. The Goldwing handles, in proportion to its weight, better than most riders expect a machine of its size to handle, and this is a direct consequence of engineering decisions about engine orientation made in 1975 that are still paying dividends in the current generation. The Honda CX500, produced from 1978 to 1983, is the machine that TT racer and engineer Alex Matcham famously called the Plastic Maggot, a nickname that reflected both its unconventional visual character and the unconventional engineering choices that produced it. The CX500 used a transverse V-twin engine with liquid cooling at a time when most Honda motorcycles were air-cooled, with pushrod-operated overhead valves rather than the overhead cam arrangement that Honda had committed to across its other models. The unconventional specification reflected Honda's engineering confidence rather than any compromise, with the pushrod arrangement chosen specifically because it allowed the engine to be narrower and more tightly packaged than an overhead cam equivalent. The CX500 also became the basis for the CX500 Turbo, introduced in 1982, which was the first turbocharged production motorcycle ever offered for sale by any manufacturer. The CX500 Turbo's significance is historical rather than commercial. It was expensive, complicated, and not dramatically faster than normally aspirated alternatives. But it demonstrated that turbocharging could be applied to a motorcycle and sold through a dealer network, which opened a line of development that manufacturers are returning to with renewed interest in the contemporary context of electric-assisted combustion and alternative powertrain technologies. The riding position of the Honda CB754 and its direct descendants. The upright seating with feet below the rider and hands reaching naturally forward to relatively low bars established what became known as the standard or naked motorcycle position, and remains the default configuration of the modern naked bike category. Before the CB 750, there was no standardized posture for a large displacement motorcycle. Some machines had low bars that pushed the rider forward, some had high bars that pulled the rider upright, and the variation reflected individual manufacturer preferences and the specific markets each machine was intended for. The CB 750's natural upright position was accessible to riders of different physical dimensions and comfortable over a range of riding conditions from urban commuting to longer journeys. Its adoption as a de facto standard by the industry reflects how thoroughly the CB 750 defined what a large displacement motorcycle should be in every dimension. Not only engine architecture and specification, but the fundamental physical relationship between the machine and the person riding it. There is a particular quality of evening light in the Japanese industrial city of Saitama, where Honda's main Japanese manufacturing facility operates, that the workers on the production line never see during their shifts because the facility runs through the day and into the evening, and the light inside the factory is consistent regardless of what the sun is doing outside. The motorcycles that emerge from that facility into the late afternoon shipment queue catch the light differently from the ones that came before them, angled in ways that depend on where each machine sits in the queue and what the sun's position happens to be. This has nothing to do with the machines, which are identical in every documented specification. It is just a thought about the distance between the designed object and the experienced one, and about how many thousands of small and unplanned things happen between an engineer's drawing and the moment when a specific human being sits on a specific motorcycle on a specific evening and feels the engine start beneath them. The Honda is the same everywhere it is made and different everywhere it is ridden, and this is not a contradiction. It is the simplest possible description of what a well-designed machine does. The Honda CT125, known as the Hunter Cub, introduced in 2020, is the most recent expression of a lineage that traces back to the original CT90 of 1969, and that represents a specific strand of Honda's thinking about what a small motorcycle can be. The Hunter Cub is not a commuter, not a performance machine, not a touring bike, and not quite an off-road machine. It is a machine for riding slowly on interesting surfaces in interesting places, with enough capability to manage mild off-road conditions and enough refinement to be comfortable on paved roads, and with a visual character that is specific and charming enough to be an object of desire independent of its functional qualities. The Hunter Cub became a significant commercial success in Japan and in export markets almost immediately after its introduction, purchased by people who wanted a machine for the specific kind of riding it suggested: unhurried, exploratory, close to the ground and the landscape, with no particular destination in mind. Honda had identified and produced a machine for a form of riding that many people had been doing in their imaginations without having the right machine available for it. The engineering culture at Honda Research and Development, which operates with substantial independence from the main Honda Motor Company structure, has been described by people who have worked within it as unusual in the degree to which individual engineers are given latitude to pursue ideas that are not immediately connected to any planned product. The Honda R&D facility in Waco, Japan, employs thousands of engineers and researchers working on projects that range from immediate product development to fundamental research into engine technology, materials science, robotics, and alternative energy. The culture within this organization, as described by former participants, values the engineer's own curiosity as a productive resource rather than as something to be managed and directed. Soichiro Honda was himself an engineer who pursued problems because they interested him as much as because they promised commercial outcomes, and this personal orientation became an institutional value that the company has maintained through leadership transitions that might otherwise have eliminated it. The machines that Honda produces are, in some measurable sense, the output of a culture that values curiosity about how things work as a foundational professional quality. The Honda RC142, which competed in the 1959 Isle of Man TT as Honda's first official racing entry, used a 125cc twin-cylinder engine that was unusual in the racing context of the era for its high-revving, short-stroke configuration. Most racing engines of the period used relatively long strokes and moderate maximum RPM. Honda's engineers, drawing on the company's developing expertise in small, high-revving engines, built the RC142 to rev significantly higher than comparable machines, producing more power from a given displacement through higher engine speed rather than through greater piston displacement or higher cylinder pressure. The approach was mechanically demanding, requiring precision in every dimension of engine construction that was difficult to achieve consistently. The results at the 1959 TT, where Honda riders finished 3rd through 7th in the 125cc class, were not victories, but were sufficient to confirm that the approach was valid and that continued development would close the remaining gap to the frontrunners. The lesson that Honda drew from the 1959 TT was not that they had failed. It was that they were closer than they needed to be to succeed, and that success was a matter of continuing the development trajectory they had established rather than changing direction. Let the road go quiet for a moment. The night is long and generous, and there is no hurry in any of it. Close your eyes if they want to close. The facts keep coming either way. The Honda ST1300 Pan-European, produced from 2002 to 2016, was a machine designed specifically for the European touring market with a specificity of purpose that the model's name made explicit. The Pan-European was a machine for riding across Europe through the passes of the Alps, along the motorways of Germany and France, through the switchbacks of the Pyrenees and the long straits of the Iberian Peninsula. It used a transverse V4 engine mounted with the crankshaft running across the frame rather than along it, a configuration that kept the engine's width compact while taking advantage of the V4's smooth power delivery and mechanical refinement. The ST1300 was never the most exciting Honda. It was not the fastest, the most beautiful, or the most technologically novel. What it was, with a consistency that its owners documented over hundreds of thousands of kilometers of European travel, was comprehensively excellent at the thing it was designed to do. It kept its riders comfortable, carried their gear, managed all weather conditions with equanimity, and arrived at destinations reliably across decades of use. The ST1300 is the kind of motorcycle that does not generate mythology, because the people who ride it are too busy being somewhere to stop and tell stories about how they got there. The Honda CB77 Superhawk, produced from 1961 to 1967 for the American market, was the machine that first established Honda's reputation with American riders who were interested in something more than basic transportation. The CB77 was a 305cc twin-cylinder machine with overhead camshafts and a level of finish and specification that was genuinely superior to what American riders had been accustomed to from domestic and British manufacturers at a similar price point. The Superhawk would rev freely to speeds that contemporary European and American twins could not approach without difficulty. It was reliable in a way that older machines were not, and it looked modern and purposeful in a way that connected with a younger American rider demographic that was discovering motorcycles in the early 1960s for the first time. The CB77 is one of the machines that built Honda's American reputation in the period before the CB750 made the reputation inarguable. And the riders who bought and rode them in the early 1960s were the early adopters of what would become the most significant shift in the American motorcycle market in the century's second half. The relationship between Honda's motorcycle division and its automobile division is managed carefully within the company's structure, with engineering resources, manufacturing facilities, and technical knowledge shared across the two in ways that benefit both. The V-Tech technology that appeared on the VFR 800 motorcycle was developed first for Honda automobiles. The aluminum casting expertise that allows Honda to produce lightweight engine cases for its motorcycles was developed partly through the demands of automotive production. The fuel injection calibration knowledge that makes Honda's current engines clean and efficient at all operating conditions was refined through the company's extensive automobile engine development program. The breadth of Honda's engineering capabilities, which allows the motorcycle division to draw on solutions developed in an automotive context, is one of the less visible but genuinely significant competitive advantages the company holds over motorcycle-only manufacturers who must develop every technology from within a smaller engineering base. The Honda CRF 250L, the street-legal version of Honda's off-road competition lineage, occupies a specific position in the dual-sport market as a machine that prioritizes genuine off-road capability over the road comfort that adventure motorcycles typically offer as their primary attribute. The CRF 250L is not particularly comfortable on long highway journeys. The seat is firm, the wind protection is minimal, and the suspension, calibrated for off-road use, produces a riding character on smooth roads that most touring riders would find excessive. What it offers instead is the ability to go where paved roads end and continue, on tracks and trails and unpaved forest roads, with a lightness and capability that machines twice its size cannot replicate. The CRF 250L and its successors represent a specific strand of Honda thinking about motorcycle utility that traces back to the original trail bikes of the 1960s. The idea that a motorcycle's value lies partly in its ability to go places that other transportation cannot reach, and that designing for this capability requires accepting trade-offs in other dimensions that the purely road-oriented machine does not face. The specific way that Honda manages its product naming and model designation across different markets is one of the more revealing indicators of how the company thinks about its global customer base. A model sold in Japan under one name may be sold in Europe under a different name, or with different specifications, or not at all. And a model that is a core part of the North American lineup may not exist in the same form in Asia. The CBR series designates sports bikes in some markets and sport touring machines in others. The CB series has covered everything from small displacement commuters to large displacement naked bikes. The CarF series encompasses everything from children's mini bikes to professional motocross competition machines. This naming flexibility reflects a willingness to use the same designations for very different products in different markets when those products serve the same function in their respective contexts, rather than insisting on global uniformity of product and name. The result is a product naming system that can be confusing from the outside, but that makes sense within the logic of each regional market, which is the same logic Honda applies to its product specifications. What the customer needs in their specific context takes priority over global consistency for its own sake. The sound that a Honda motorcycle makes at startup, particularly on cold mornings, follows a specific sequence that experienced Honda riders know as well as they know their own name. The electric starter turns over the engine at a specific cranking speed that is characteristic of the starter motor and the compression of the engine. The engine fires, catching first on one cylinder and then immediately on the others in the case of a multi-cylinder machine. And the idle settles to a level that is determined by the choke or the automatic enrichment circuit if the machine is cold. As the engine warms, the idle speed gradually drops to its normal running level and the engine note changes character as the mechanical clearances tighten with heat and the oil reaches operating temperature. This sequence, which takes several minutes on a cold machine, is a form of communication that the machine is carrying out with anyone paying attention, and the rider who knows what normal sounds like in every phase of this sequence can detect any deviation from it before any instrument has registered a problem. Learning to hear a machine is part of learning to know it. And the people who ride the same Honda for many years hear things in the startup sequence that they would struggle to articulate, but that inform them accurately about the mechanical state of the engine. The Honda company's environmental commitments, which have been articulated with increasing specificity since the 1990s, represent a dimension of the organization's identity that sits in genuine tension with the fact that it manufactures internal combustion engines in very large numbers. Honda was the first Japanese automobile manufacturer to meet the United States emission standards imposed by the 1970 Clean Air Act, and it did so through engineering rather than through lobbying for relaxed standards, which was the approach adopted by most of the domestic American manufacturers at the time. The CVCC engine technology that Honda developed to meet the Clean Air Act standards used a stratified charge combustion system that reduced emissions without requiring the catalytic converter that other manufacturers needed to meet the same standards. The application of this same problem-solving orientation to motorcycle emissions, which Honda pursued through the development of progressively cleaner engines across the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, resulted in Honda's current motorcycle lineup being among the most emissions compliant in the industry without sacrificing the performance and riding character that its customers expect. There is more road ahead than this first half of the night has covered. The Honda story is long, and there is still so much of it to go. Let yourself carry it gently, like the weight of a well-fitting helmet, familiar and present, and not demanding anything from you beyond your quiet attention. The Honda CBF series, which includes the CBF 125, CBF 500, and CBF 600, was developed with a specific philosophy about what the urban commuter motorcycle should be in the European market context. Commuter motorcycles face demands that are in some ways more stringent than performance motorcycles, because they must perform reliably day after day in traffic conditions that are hard on engines, brakes, and tires, in weather conditions that range from fine to hostile, ridden by people whose primary relationship with the machine is functional rather than emotional. The CBF family addressed these demands with mechanically robust engines, practical storage considerations, upright riding positions that provided good visibility in traffic, and the durability that Honda had built into its products across decades. The CBF 125 became one of the most widely ridden learner motorcycles in Europe through the 2000s and into the 2010s, introducing hundreds of thousands of riders to motorcycling in a machine that was forgiving enough to survive the learning process without complaint, and that provided a foundation of confidence rather than an early experience of machinery beyond the rider's current ability. The machines that serve this function, bringing people into motorcycling at the beginning of their riding lives and doing so without drama or difficulty, do not generate the kind of press coverage that record-breaking performance machines attract. Their contribution to the overall culture of motorcycling is nonetheless significant. Because every rider who had a good first experience on a CBF 125 and came back for more is a rider who otherwise might not be riding at all. The principle behind Honda's racing service package, offered to private racing teams who campaign Honda machinery in various national and international series, reflects the company's understanding that its competitive reputation depends not only on what its factory teams achieve, but on the performance of the Honda machinery at every level of competition. A privateer team running old Honda machinery that fails to finish races damages the Honda name in the eyes of spectators and potential customers just as surely as a factory team failure does. And the racing service package exists to provide technical support, part supply, and performance guidance that helps private teams campaign Honda machinery credibly. The program is commercially significant because it generates revenue from parts and support services. It is also strategically significant because it extends Honda's competitive network to a breadth that no factory team alone could cover, and because the lessons learned by private teams in varied competitive conditions provide feedback to the factory's engineers that complements what the factory teams themselves generate. The Honda Dio, a scooter produced since 1988 and sold across Asia in enormous numbers, represents a dimension of Honda's product range that is rarely discussed in the context of Western motorcycle culture, but that is commercially significant on a scale that most Western market Honda models cannot approach. The Dio family has sold tens of millions of units across Asian markets, where the scooter format, with its step-through body, automatic transmission, and covered mechanics, is the dominant form of personal motorized transport for urban and suburban populations. The engineering that goes into a machine like the Dio is not the dramatic engineering of a racing motorcycle or a touring flagship. It is the patient, systematic engineering of a product that must perform reliably in conditions of heavy urban use, infrequent servicing, and cost-sensitive ownership, and that must do so at a price point that makes it accessible to the broad population it is designed to serve. The Dio is, in many Asian cities, the machine that a young person buys when they need to be somewhere that walking will not reach in time. The fact that it starts and runs and gets them there day after day is Honda's achievement at its most quietly essential. The Honda CB500X has a specific distinction within the adventure motorcycle segment that its specification sheet alone does not capture. It is the machine that has introduced more first-time adventure riders to the format than any other in the contemporary market, and it has done so not by being the most capable adventure machine or the most technologically sophisticated, but by being the most honest about what a new adventure rider actually needs. A new rider does not need 150 horsepower and 200 millimeters of suspension travel. They need a machine that is light enough to pick up when they drop it on a gravel road, powerful enough to cruise highways comfortably, capable enough on mild off-road surfaces to justify the adventure category, and reliable enough that they can take it somewhere remote without rehearsing a rescue plan. The CB500X provides all of this, and it does so at a price that does not require the kind of financial commitment that makes a mistake catastrophic. Honda designed the CB500X knowing exactly who would buy it and what they would do with it. And the match between the machine and its intended purpose is one of the more complete examples of customer-centered design in the current motorcycle market. The Honda CBR 1000RR Fireblade SPI, the current pinnacle of the Fireblade lineage that began with Tadao Baba's total control philosophy in 1992, represents how far the performance sports motorcycle has traveled in 3 decades of continuous development. Where the original Fireblade prioritized lightweight and chassis balance over outright power, the current SPI version produces approximately 217 horsepower and uses an electronics package that includes cornering abs, multiple traction control maps, wheelie control, launch control, and a quick shifter for clutchless upshifts and downshifts. The electronic sophistication means that the machine's performance envelope is accessible to a wider range of riders than the raw power figure suggests. Because the systems intervene to prevent the most dangerous consequences of errors at the limit, the current Fireblade is a different kind of machine from the 1992 original. Not better in some absolute sense, and not worse, but calibrated for a different relationship between the machine's capability and the rider's skill than Baba's original concept assumed. The evolution of the Fireblade across 3 decades is in some ways the history of the entire sports motorcycle industry compressed into a single model lineage. The Honda Gram, introduced in 2013 as the MSX125 in Asian markets and the Gram in North America, became one of the most unexpectedly significant motorcycle introductions of the 2010s. The Gram is a 125cc machine with small wheels, a low seat height, and a visual character that references the mini motorcycle aesthetic of the Honda Monkey, while producing a machine that is more capable and more practical as actual transportation. The Gram's significance is partly in what it is, and partly in who bought it. The machine attracted a demographic of urban young riders and customizers who did not previously have a Honda product they identified with, and it generated an aftermarket customization industry that produced more parts and accessories for the Gram in its first few years than for many machines 10 times its price. The Gram became a platform for creative expression in the way that the original Honda CB750 had been, and a community that formed around it shared the same impulse of taking a factory starting point and making it specifically their own. Honda had created a small machine that cast a large cultural shadow. There is a specific quality of exhaustion that settles into a rider's hands after a long day of riding a Honda Inline 4 at high engine loads. A fine vibration absorbed through the throttle and handlebar grips that is different in character from the vibration of a twin or a single, and that takes longer to manifest but is just as real when it does. This is not a fault of the machine. It is the honest physical reality of managing a high-frequency engine over many hours and the riders who learn to work with it, taking short breaks and using the full range of body position adjustments available to them, develop a physical literacy about their own response to the machine that is part of becoming genuinely competent on it. The physical conversation between a rider and a motorcycle over a long day is not only in the primary controls. It is in the accumulated sensory information of every mile, in the particular weight of the machine at a fuel stop, in the specific vibration of the engine at cruise, in the way the seat feels different at the end of the day from how it felt at the beginning. Long-distance riders learn to read this information and respond to it, and the machine that communicates it clearly is serving them better than the machine that suppresses all feedback in pursuit of an abstract smoothness. Honda's approach to the scooter market, which it has served since the earliest years of its existence, reflects the same fundamental philosophy that guides its motorcycle development. The product should do its job so reliably and so well that the person using it never has to think about the machine itself. A scooter rider, in most cases, is not thinking about motorcycles. They are thinking about where they are going, whether they will be on time, what they need to do when they get there. The scooter exists for them as pure transportation infrastructure, the means to an end rather than an end in itself. Designing for this user requires a specific kind of engineering honesty about what the product actually needs to be, as opposed to what an engineer might find interesting to build or what a marketing brief might suggest would generate enthusiasm in a product review. Honda's PCX series, its current mainstream scooter lineup, achieves this functional transparency so completely that the majority of people who ride PCX scooters daily have no particular feelings about the machine as a machine. It simply works every time, reliably, without drama. This is the hardest outcome to engineer and the least glamorous to celebrate, which is why it is rarely celebrated despite being the form of success that affects the most people's daily lives. The Honda XR250R, which was produced in a form recognizable as a competition off-road machine from the 1980s through the early 2000s, established a standard for the lightweight four-stroke trail bike that influenced the entire segment. Before Honda committed to the four-stroke configuration for competition off-road motorcycles, the two-stroke was dominant in the class because of its superior power-to-weight ratio and a simpler mechanical packaging of a two-stroke engine in a frame intended to be as light as possible. Honda's engineers built the XR250R to demonstrate that a four-stroke could be competitive on power while offering advantages in fuel efficiency, throttle response predictability, and mechanical accessibility that made it preferable for the trail and enduro rider who was not primarily concerned with outright speed, but with covering distance reliably in demanding terrain. The XR250R proved the case convincingly, and the pattern of Honda using its engineering resources to demonstrate the viability of an approach that others in the industry had dismissed as impractical would repeat itself in several subsequent contexts. The Honda collection at the company's museum in Motegi, Japan, is housed at the Twin Ring Motegi Circuit, a racing facility that Honda owns and operates, and which serves as the venue for the Japanese MotoGP round as well as various other motorsport events. The museum contains machines from every era of Honda's motorcycle history, including racing machines that have never been publicly displayed elsewhere and prototypes that were built in small numbers to test specific engineering ideas and that never reached production. For visitors who know enough of the history to understand what they are looking at, the collection provides a compressed and specific account of how Honda's engineering evolved across 7 decades, with each machine visible as a response to what came before it and as the foundation for what followed. The Twin Ring Motegi Museum is not widely known outside Japan, which means it is visited primarily by people with a specific and informed interest in Honda's engineering history, and the conversations that take place in its galleries between people who have ridden these machines or worked on them or simply studied them closely are among the more interesting discussions available in the world of motorcycles. Subscribe to this channel and keep it in your regular rotation. These long, easy rides through the things that matter to riders are here whenever you need them. The Honda CBX 1000, introduced in 1978, was the motorcycle that most dramatically demonstrated Honda's ability to take an engineering concept to its logical extreme simply because it could. The CBX used a 6-cylinder inline engine displacing 1,047 cc, producing approximately 105 horsepower at a time when this was an extraordinary output for any production motorcycle. The engine was visually spectacular, with 6 carburetors and 6 individual exhaust headers, creating a visual and auditory presence that no competing machine could approach. The CBX was not the most practical motorcycle Honda made in 1978. It was not the most versatile or the most comfortable or the most fuel efficient. It was the most extraordinary, and Honda built it partly because the engineering challenge of packaging a six-cylinder engine in a motorcycle frame that could actually be ridden was interesting to solve, and partly because the resulting machine was a demonstration of capability that no specification sheet for any competing product could neutralize. The CBX 1000 exists in Honda's history as evidence that the company's engineers were capable of doing things that other engineers at other companies were not attempting, and the motorcycle press received it in that spirit. It sold well enough to remain in production through 1982, gaining a fairing and touring equipment in its later years as the practicality of the platform was gradually recognized alongside its theatrical qualities. The specific feel of a Honda single-cylinder engine at moderate revs on a small displacement machine, the particular pulse and character of a well-tuned thumper cruising along a country road at moderate speed, is one of the more meditative riding experiences available on a motorcycle. The single-cylinder engine fires once per revolution of the crankshaft in a four-stroke, or once every 2 revolutions, producing a distinct rhythmic pulse that at moderate road speeds arrives at a frequency that the body perceives as a steady, slow beat rather than a continuous vibration. Small Honda singles, from the XR250 to the CRF 300L to the CB 300R, share this character in different expressions, and the riders who seek it out and ride these machines on roads that suit them describe a specific kind of engagement with the road and the engine that differs from what larger, smoother, more powerful machines offer. The single-cylinder Honda at a comfortable pace on a good road is not trying to impress anyone. It is simply going somewhere at the pace that suits both the machine and the moment, and in that specificity, it offers something that machines with more capability sometimes do not. The Honda RC166, the 6-cylinder 250cc Grand Prix machine that Phil Reed and Mike Halewood raced in the mid-1960s, represents one of the most technically ambitious racing motorcycles ever produced in any era. A 6-cylinder engine displacing 250cc means each cylinder displaces approximately 41cc, making each cylinder about the size of a 50cc scooter engine. Running at over 18,000 RPM, the RC166 produced approximately 60 horsepower from those tiny cylinders, in a machine weighing around 130 kilograms. The engineering required to produce a reliable engine that would run at those speeds and maintain those power outputs across the duration of a race was at the absolute frontier of what was mechanically possible with the materials and manufacturing methods available in 1966. Mike Halewood won the 250cc World Championship on the RC166 in 1966 and 1967. And the machine's dominance prompted rule changes that effectively banned the most exotic multi-cylinder configurations from Grand Prix racing. The RC166 was not just the best 250cc machine of its era, it was so much better than anything else that the sport chose to change its rules rather than watch one manufacturer win indefinitely with a machine that others could not practically replicate. The Honda NT 1100, introduced in 2022, represents Honda's current thinking about what a sport touring motorcycle should be for the contemporary rider who wants covering long distances comfortably without sacrificing the engagement of a machine that handles well and responds precisely to rider inputs. The NT 1100 uses a parallel twin engine derived from the Africa Twins power plant, in a chassis designed specifically for road touring rather than mixed terrain capability. Its electronic suite includes multiple riding modes, cornering abs, adaptive cruise control, and smartphone connectivity. Packaged in a machine that weighs less than many of its competitors, and that Honda's test riders describe as genuinely easy to manage in urban conditions as well as on motorways. The NT1100 is not a machine that generates strong emotions at first encounter. It is a machine that rewards extended acquaintance, revealing its qualities gradually over the kind of distances that touring riders actually cover rather than the short test routes that reveal a machine's character in concentrated form. This is one of Honda's recurring patterns, to build things that improve with familiarity rather than things that peak at first impression. The way Honda's safety research has translated into production motorcycle technology is a trajectory that the company has pursued more consistently than most of its competitors. Honda's Research Institute, dedicated to traffic safety, established in the 1970s, has produced findings that have influenced the design of Honda motorcycles in areas including rider visibility, braking performance, chassis stability, and protective equipment. The Honda-branded airbag, offered on the Goldwing since 2006, was the first motorcycle airbag to reach production and remains one of the few available on any production motorcycle. Honda developed the system after research demonstrated that the specific impact pattern of many motorcycle accidents, in which the rider moves forward over the handlebars following a frontal collision, could be mitigated by an airbag integrated into the fairing structure that deploying in the path of the rider's upper body. The development of a reliable airbag for a motorcycle which moves, vibrates, and experiences the forces of cornering, braking, and acceleration in ways that fundamentally challenge the triggering and deployment systems designed for automobiles took years and required solutions that had no automotive precedent. The Goldwing airbag is one of the less celebrated but more substantive engineering achievements in Honda's recent motorcycle history. The specific geography of Japan has influenced Honda's motorcycle design in ways that are not always obvious, but that are traceable if you look for them. Japanese roads, particularly outside the major cities, combine tight corners, variable surfaces, and significant elevation changes in a way that rewards motorcycle handling balance and engine response more than outright top speed. The mountain roads of the Hakone, Nasu, and other resort regions near Tokyo have been favored testing grounds for Japanese motorcycle development engineers for decades, and the character of those roads, their surface texture, their corner radius distributions, their gradient profiles, is embedded in the handling calibrations of generations of Honda motorcycles. When European riders comment on how well a Honda handles on the twisting mountain roads of the Alps or the Pyrenees, they are partly responding to the fact that those roads have a character similar to the Japanese mountain roads on which the handling was developed and refined. Honda designed its motorcycles for the roads Honda engineers rode, and those roads have shaped the machines more concretely than any stated design specification. If you find yourself here regularly at the end of a long day, you've found the right thing. This channel is here every night, and all you have to do is show up. The Honda CBF concept, shown at various motorcycle exhibitions in the early 2020s, and previewing the direction of Honda's neo-retro design language, illustrated the degree to which the company was thinking seriously about the emotional dimension of motorcycle design in addition to the functional one. The CBF concept referenced the CB900F and CB1100F of the early 1980s. The machines that Honda produced as the ultimate expression of the inline-4 era before the sports bike category began demanding full fairings and racing ergonomics. These machines, which sat upright and exposed their engines openly, had a visual honesty that many riders found more appealing than the enclosed aesthetics of the sports bike era that followed. The CBF concept suggested that Honda was prepared to revisit this aesthetic and produce a machine that carried that visual language into the current period with contemporary mechanical content. And the response from riders and media who saw it confirmed that the appetite for that specific combination was genuine and substantial. The Honda Wave series, which includes the Wave 100, Wave 110, Wave 125, and their variants, is the dominant product line in several Southeast Asian markets and is produced in volumes that dwarf most motorcycle models that receive coverage in the Western motorcycle press. The Wave series occupies the same functional territory as the Super Cub in markets where the step-through body style of the Cub is less preferred, offering a similar combination of simplicity, reliability, and affordability in a conventional motorcycle silhouette with an automatic or semi-automatic transmission. In Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and several other markets, the Wave family provides the primary personal transportation for a population that uses motorcycles the way Western populations use automobiles, as the default means of getting somewhere efficiently and without significant cost. The engineering decisions embedded in the Wave, the specific calibration of the engine for high ambient temperatures and lower fuel quality, the suspension tuning for road surfaces that vary significantly in quality, the seat ergonomics for riders who may spend several hours daily on the machine, reflect an understanding of a specific context of use that is as sophisticated as any premium motorcycle development, even if it addresses fundamentally different requirements. The Honda RC213V, the current MotoGP machine, uses a pneumatic valve train rather than the mechanical spring return valve system used in virtually all production engines. In a mechanical spring return system, the valve is pushed open by the cam lobe and returned to its closed position by a metal spring. At the engine speeds of a MotoGP machine, which can exceed 18,000 RPM, metal springs cannot return the valves to their seats quickly enough to keep pace with the cam, a phenomenon known as valve float that causes loss of power and potential engine damage. Pneumatic valve systems replace the metal spring with a column of compressed gas, typically nitrogen, which returns the valve more rapidly and consistently than a metal spring at the same cam actuation speed. The development of reliable pneumatic valve systems for racing engines was itself a significant engineering achievement, requiring new approaches to sealing compressed gas in a dynamic mechanical environment and managing the heat generated by the rapid compression and expansion of the gas across thousands of operating cycles. The pneumatic valve system is one of the details of MotoGP engineering that most casual followers of the sport are unaware of, but that is among the more fundamental differences between a racing engine and any engine available for purchase. The Honda CBR 600RR, the company's 600cc supersport machine produced since 2003, has been through a development cycle that illustrates the specific challenge of maintaining competitiveness in a class defined by technical regulations that are highly prescriptive about what the machines can and cannot do. The 600cc Supersport class in World Supersport Racing and in National Championship Series has rules that limit engine displacement, restrict the use of exotic materials in certain components, and require that the machines be available for sale to the public. Within these constraints, the competing manufacturers have progressively raised the performance ceiling through iterative refinement of every permitted dimension of the machine. And the CBR 600RR's evolution across its production life reflects this process in Honda's specific engineering vocabulary. Successive iterations of the machine show continuous small improvements in chassis stiffness distribution, engine breathing, electronic sophistication, and the weight of individual components. No single year's changes are dramatic. The cumulative effect across the full production run is substantial. This is the kind of development that does not generate headlines, but that determines race results. And Honda's ability to sustain this level of continuous refinement across long development periods is itself a competitive advantage. The Honda Bentley, a name that Honda applied to a series of small displacement motorcycles in the 1950s and 1960s, was the machine that first established the company's reputation for quality and reliability in markets outside Japan. The Bentley series was exported to the United States, Europe, and other international markets beginning in the late 1950s, and the experience of early customers who rode them compared favorably enough to what they had previously been offered that word spread through the small communities of motorcycle enthusiasts in ways that conventional advertising could not have achieved on its own. The Bentley's reputation was built by the people who rode them and found them to be better than they expected, which is the same foundation on which every subsequent generation of Honda's reputation has been built. The engineering that made the Bentley reliable was not sophisticated relative to what Honda would later produce, but it was honest. The machine did what it claimed to do consistently, and in the motorcycle market of the late 1950s, consistency of this kind was sufficiently rare to be memorable. The Honda GL500 Silverwing, produced from 1981 to 1982 as a smaller displacement version of the Goldwing concept using a flat twin engine, was a machine that found a more enthusiastic reception among the press than among buyers, and that was discontinued before it had the opportunity to establish itself as its intended market developed. The GL500 represented Honda's attempt to offer the Goldwing touring experience in a more accessible package, using the flat twin engine's inherent balance and low center of gravity in a machine lighter and less expensive than the full Goldwing. The machine's timing was unfortunate, arriving in a market that was not yet fully developed for the mid-weight touring category that the GL500 occupied, and its early discontinuation meant that many potential buyers never encountered it. It remains a machine that Honda enthusiasts with specific knowledge of the company's history regard with some affection, as evidence of a direction the company explored and then set aside rather than developing further, in the same way that certain film directors are admired for the films they made between their major successes. The specific sound of a Honda V4 engine at moderate revs and moderate load cruising on an open road is one of the more distinctive and pleasant engine notes available in motorcycling. The V4 configuration, with its 90-degree angle between cylinder banks in the most common Honda application, produces a firing interval that differs from both the parallel 4 and the V-twin, with an evenness that avoids the buzziness of the parallel 4 and a mechanical character that differs from the thumping pulse of the twin. The V4 sound has been described by journalists and writers in terms that reference music more often than most engine descriptions do, with words like harmonious, complex, and layered appearing consistently. Honda has produced V4 engines in motorcycle applications since the early 1980s, beginning with the VF750 and continuing through the VF-er family, the RC30, the RC45, the SP1 and SP2, and a current RC233V. And across all of these applications, the fundamental character of the V4 sound has remained recognizable as a Honda V4. It is the acoustic signature of a specific engineering tradition, and riders who have spent time on V4 Hondas develop an attachment to the sound that makes moving to a different engine configuration feel like a loss of something specific. The Honda CB300R introduced in 2018 as part of the Neo Sports Cafe family, represents the smallest displacement machine in a design language that Honda has developed with careful consistency across multiple displacement categories. The CB300R uses a single-cylinder engine in a minimal chassis with a visual aesthetic that prioritizes the engine as a design object rather than concealing it behind bodywork. The round LED headlamp, the clean tank line, and the absence of any visual complexity that does not serve the machine's fundamental character make the CB300R one of the more thoughtfully resolved motorcycle designs of the current period. It is a machine for a rider who values visual integrity and mechanical honesty alongside the practical requirements of affordable, manageable transportation. The CB300R represents Honda's understanding that the entry-level segment of the market is not only a category for machines that new riders tolerate until they can afford something better. It is a category for machines that new riders, and some experienced ones who value specific qualities, actively choose and continue to choose because the machines themselves offer something worth choosing. The road has been long tonight, and the Honda story has filled it well. The engine runs on. The facts have been coming steadily, each one sitting alongside the others without urgency, carrying different parts of the same long story of a company that began with a war surplus engine attached to a bicycle and that has spent the intervening decades trying to understand, with greater and greater precision, what a motorcycle can be made to do and what it can be made to mean to the person riding it. The Honda that started in a shed in post-war Japan and the Honda that currently operates manufacturing facilities on multiple continents, that wins MotoGP championships and builds the best-selling vehicle in human history simultaneously, is the same company in all the ways that matter. The same insistence on taking an engineering problem seriously, regardless of whether the solution was obvious or convenient. The same willingness to target a specific outcome and commit the resources necessary to achieve it. The same recognition that a product is not finished when it works adequately, but only when it works as well as current knowledge allows. And that current knowledge should always be under pressure to become better knowledge. Every Honda motorcycle ever built has been, in some sense, a response to the one before it. Every improvement has been an answer to a question the previous machine raised. And the questioning has never stopped, which is why the machines keep getting better and why the story is still being written, and why there are still facts worth knowing that have not yet been told. Subscribe to the Sleepy Rider channel. Come back whenever the road calls you back to it. The engine is always warm here, and the night is always long enough. Rest well. The Honda NT 650 Hawk GT, produced from 1988 to 1991 in the United States market, arrived at a moment when Honda was experimenting with the V-twin configuration in road bikes that was not part of the company's mainstream engineering tradition. The Hawk GT used a 647cc V-twin engine mounted at a 52-degree angle in a chassis derived from Honda's racing experience, producing a machine that was lighter, more compact, and more flickable than the CB series machines it sat alongside in the showroom. The Hawk GT was well received by the motorcycle press, which noted its handling precision and the engaging character of its engine, but it was not commercially successful enough to continue beyond 1991. In the decades since its discontinuation, the Hawk GT has accumulated a following among riders who discovered it used and who found in it a specific combination of qualities: the V-twin character, the lightweight, the capable chassis that the contemporary market does not easily replicate. It is one of the machines in Honda's history that was right before the market was ready for it. And the riders who own and maintain examples today do so with an awareness of what they have that owners of more plentiful machines rarely develop. The Honda CBF 1000, produced from 2006 to 2013, was a sport touring machine aimed at riders who had graduated from smaller machines and wanted something capable of covering distance comfortably, while still handling well enough to be engaging on the kind of roads that European riders cover as part of their daily riding rather than as exceptional occasions. The CBF 1000 used a 998cc inline-4 engine in a relatively upright chassis with an integrated fairing, adjustable windscreen, and a luggage system that could accommodate touring gear without requiring aftermarket additions. Its competence was comprehensive without being exceptional in any single dimension, which made it one of those machines that generate strong loyalty among owners while remaining underrepresented in the motorcycle press relative to its actual significance to the people who relied on it. The CBF 1000 was replaced by the CB 1000R in Honda's lineup, which sacrificed some of the CBF's touring capability in favor of a more visually dramatic naked bike aesthetic. The riders who had valued the CBF 1000's touring completeness noted the difference with the particular clarity that comes from having relied on something specific and found its replacement less specific. The Honda XL series, which began with the XL 250 in 1972, was one of the foundational products of the dual sport category before that category had a name. The XL 250 was a motorcycle designed for both road and off-road use, with enough capability on unpaved surfaces to be genuinely useful on trails while remaining street legal and comfortable enough on paved roads for daily use and longer journeys. The design philosophy behind the XL 250 has been described by the engineers involved as trying to produce a machine that could take a rider from their driveway to the end of the nearest fire road without any preparation or modification. The simplicity of this ambition and the difficulty of actually achieving it, producing a machine that is genuinely good in two significantly different environments without serious compromise in either, is something that the dual sports segment has been working toward ever since. The Honda XL series established the basic parameters of the category, and the Africa Twin, the CRF 300L, and the Transalp are all in different ways more sophisticated answers to the same question the XL 250 first asked in 1972. The relationship between Honda and its dealership network is more carefully managed than most customers realize. Honda has historically been demanding of its dealers in terms of facility standards, customer service protocols, and technical training requirements. Recognizing that the quality of the experience a customer has at a dealership is inseparable from their perception of the brand itself. A customer who purchases a Honda from a poorly managed dealership where service is slow, staff are uninformed, and the facility is inadequate may form a negative impression of Honda as a brand, even if the motorcycle they purchased is excellent. Honda's dealer development programs, which provide training, facility support, and performance monitoring to franchise dealerships, represent an investment in the customer experience that extends well beyond the factory gate. The consistency of the Honda service experience across different dealerships in different countries, which is genuine if imperfect, reflects the degree to which Honda manages its dealer network as a brand asset rather than simply as a distribution channel. The Honda C90, known in various markets as the Super Cub 90 or the C90 Cub, holds an informal but widely noted record for the number of units produced that are still in active service relative to the number originally manufactured. No precise figure exists because tracking surviving vehicles of any kind globally is not a straightforward exercise, but the consensus among Honda historians and automotive journalists who who have studied the question is that the C90 family has a survival rate and active use that is extraordinary for any mass-produced vehicle. The reasons are consistent with the machine's design philosophy. The engine is simple enough to be repaired with basic tools by anyone with modest mechanical knowledge. Replacement parts have remained available throughout the machine's long production life, and the machine's durability means that the mechanical wear that would render a more complex machine uneconomical to repair still leaves a C90 with substantial remaining useful life. In parts of rural Asia and Africa where the C90 has been in daily service for decades, the machines are maintained to a standard of functional reliability that is entirely disconnected from their age, and that would be impossible for more complex machines of the same vintage. Honda's involvement in endurance racing, specifically the 24-hour events at Le Mans and the Bowl d'Or, has been sustained across more than 4 decades and has produced technical development that has directly influenced production machines. Endurance racing is a specific discipline that tests motorcycle reliability under sustained high-load conditions in a way that circuit sprint racing does not. Because a machine that fails mechanically after 20 laps in a sprint race loses 1 race, while a machine that fails after 8 hours in an endurance race loses an entire season's worth of points from a single event. The reliability standards required for endurance racing, where the same engine must run continuously for 24 hours at performance levels far above normal road use, push materials, lubricants, and design margins to extremes that sprint racing does not approach. Honda's solutions to endurance reliability challenges have historically found their way into production engines in modified form, and the oil systems, valve train components, and bearing specifications of current Honda production engines carry the fingerprints of decisions made in the context of endurance racing requirements that most production riders never encounter. The Honda NC700 and NC750 series, introduced in 2012 with a philosophy that their chief engineer described as bringing the efficiency of commuting to the pleasure of motorcycling, used a 670cc parallel twin engine that was physically derived from the 1.3-liter 4-cylinder engine of the Honda Jazz automobile, with 2 cylinders removed. The use of an automotive engine architecture in a motorcycle application was unusual and was criticized by some writers and journalists as a cost-cutting measure that produced an engine without adequate performance character. The criticism was partly warranted in the case of the NC700, which was calibrated for fuel economy to a degree that made it feel leisurely compared to engines of similar displacement with different priorities. The subsequent NC750 addressed some of these concerns through revised engine tuning, and the D-seat automatic gearbox version of the NC750 found a specific audience among commuters and practical riders who valued the ease and efficiency of the machine over the engagement that riders accustomed to more conventional motorcycles expected. The NC series is an interesting case study in the limits of rational engineering in a market where customers also have irrational expectations that are nonetheless real and need to be addressed. The Honda Forza series of maxi scooters, which ranges from the Forza 125 to the Forza 750, represents Honda's premium scooter proposition in a market segment where the distinction between a scooter and a motorcycle has become increasingly difficult to maintain on any engineering basis. The Forza 750, at the top of the range, uses a parallel twin engine producing 58 horsepower in a machine with a dedicated underseat storage compartment, a standard windscreen with height adjustment, and an electronics package that includes multiple riding modes, traction control, and ABS. It weighs approximately 238 kilograms and handles with the specific combination of stability and maneuverability that large wield. Long wheelbase machines offer. Riders who come to the Forza 750 from conventional motorcycles typically require a period of acclimatization to the different demands of the scooter format, particularly in the absence of a clutch and the presence of a continuously variable transmission that manages gear ratios automatically. After this acclimatization, the majority of Forza 750 owners report that the practical advantages of the format outweigh the loss of the gear engagement dimension of the riding experience, which is itself a statement about how much of the joy of motorcycling resides in the destination rather than the shifting. The Honda logo, the stylized H that appears on the fuel tank or fairing of every Honda motorcycle and automobile, was designed in the 1960s and has been modified minimally since its introduction. The H is enclosed in a shape that references both a wing and a shield, and its visual stability across 6 decades in a commercial environment. Where logo redesign is routine reflects Honda's confidence in the marks, effectiveness, and its awareness that changing a logo recognized by hundreds of millions of people worldwide carries risks that any potential benefit from a redesign would need to significantly outweigh. The Honda H has appeared in 170 countries on products ranging from the smallest 50cc scooter to the largest touring motorcycle, from the cheapest product in any market to the most expensive. Its consistency across this range is one of the more remarkable feats of brand identity management in manufacturing history, because the conditions under which it appears are so varied that a less stable visual identity would have been overwhelmed by them. The H anchors the brand across those variations, providing the continuity of recognition that allows a customer in Vietnam and a customer in Germany and a customer in Brazil to share a reference point despite every other difference in their relationship with the product. The Honda Dream 305 CA77, produced from 1961 to 1967, was the machine that established Honda's reputation with American buyers who were sophisticated enough about motorcycles to make informed comparisons between brands. The CA77 used a 305cc overhead cam twin-cylinder engine producing approximately 24 horsepower, which was competitive in its class. In a machine with a level of finish and mechanical refinement that its American and British competitors did not match at comparable prices. The CA77 was clean, it ran consistently, it looked good, and it cost less than a comparable British twin. These qualities were appreciated by a specific type of buyer, the mechanically informed, budget-conscious rider who wanted quality without mythology. And the word of mouth that this buyer generated in the small but growing American motorcycle community of the early 1960s was worth more to Honda's long-term market position than any advertising investment of comparable cost. The Honda Cub's fuel economy is one of the more extraordinary engineering achievements that casual observation would not immediately suggest it to be. A well-maintained Super Cub 110 achieves fuel consumption figures in the range of 130 to 160 kilometers per liter under typical riding conditions, which translates to approximately 300 to 370 miles per gallon by American measurement standards. These figures are the result of decades of refinement in engine efficiency, combustion management, drivetrain, friction reduction, and weight minimization. The specific fuel economy figure matters in the markets where the Super Cub is the primary means of transportation for people whose income is such that fuel costs represent a significant proportion of their household expenditure. In those markets, the difference between 130 and 160 kilometers per liter is not a specification point. It is a real and meaningful difference in the cost of getting to work, to school, to market, or to a clinic. Honda's engineers have understood this and have treated fuel economy as a primary engineering criterion rather than a secondary one in the Super Cub's development across 65 years. The results are visible in the specification and in the lives of the people who ride these machines in circumstances where every liter of fuel represents a choice between competing necessities. The Honda Interceptor, the VFR 750F of the mid-1980s and its successors, was the machine that most clearly demonstrated the direct lineage between Honda's racing development and its production motorcycles in the V4 era. The VFR 750F used a V4 engine with gear-driven cams, a feature borrowed directly from the RC30 racing machine, producing the distinctive mechanical whine at idle that identified the engine immediately to anyone who knew what they were listening for. The VFR 750F was faster than most riders needed and more refined than most of its competitors, and it established a loyal following that has persisted across every subsequent generation of the VFR line. The riders who bought VFR 750Fs in 1986 and 1987 were buying into a specific Honda tradition of engineering seriousness that was expressed in the gear-driven cam sound and in every other detail of the machine, and many of them have remained Honda V4 riders through every subsequent generation of the model. This kind of loyalty, built on the consistent delivery of a specific kind of quality across multiple product generations, is among the most durable forms of brand equity a manufacturer can build. The specific challenge of making a motorcycle that can be ridden safely in the rain without specialized tires or significant adjustment in riding technique is one that Honda has addressed more systematically than most of its competitors. The wet weather performance of a motorcycle depends on many interacting variables, including tire compound and tread pattern, chassis geometry, suspension compliance, brake modulation, and the electronic systems that intervene when grip approaches its limits. Honda's production motorcycles, through the calibration of these interacting systems, consistently receive high marks in independent tests for wet weather predictability, which is the quality that matters most to riders who encounter rain not as an exceptional condition, but as a regular feature of riding in their climate. Predictability in wet conditions does not mean maximum grip. It means that the machine's behavior when grip is reduced is consistent with what the rider expects and can manage, rather than surprising. A machine that corners well in the wet but brakes unpredictably is less safe than a machine that corners modestly but brakes predictably. And Honda's calibration of these systems reflects an understanding of this principle that has been developed through decades of attention to real-world rider conditions rather than only to performance metrics. The Honda Vision scooter, introduced in 2012 for European markets, represented Honda's response to the specific demands of urban commuting in densely populated European cities where parking is limited, traffic is congested, and the practical advantages of a small, maneuverable, fuel-efficient personal vehicle are substantial. The Vision used a 110cc single-cylinder engine and was designed to be as light and compact as its mechanical requirements allowed, with proportions that enabled filtering through narrow traffic gaps and parking in spaces that larger machines could not access. The Vision is not a machine that generates editorial enthusiasm. Its specification is modest, its performance is adequate rather than engaging, and its visual character is pleasant rather than dramatic. What it does for the specific user and in the specific context it was designed for is exactly what it needs to do, with the reliability that Honda's production engineering ensures and the fuel economy that makes daily urban use economically sensible. The Vision is another machine in the long Honda tradition of products that serve their purpose so completely and so quietly that the quality of the service becomes invisible. The Honda RC45, produced from 1994 to 1999 as the successor to the RC30, was built under different competitive conditions than the machine it replaced and faced challenges that the RC30 had not encountered. By the mid-1990s, Ducati had established dominance in world superbike racing with its V-twin machines, and the rules of the series had evolved in ways that, to Honda and other four-cylinder manufacturers, seemed to advantage the twin-cylinder configuration. The RC45 used a V4 engine with a higher level of engineering sophistication than the RC30, including Honda's variable valve timing system and a titanium connecting rod specification that was remarkable for a production machine. Its commercial reception was limited by its high price and by a competitive racing career that was more contested than the RC30s had been. John Kokinski won the 1997 World Superbike Championship on an RC45, which was the series championship, but the machine's dominance was never as complete as its predecessors had been, and Honda replaced it with the SP1 V-twin for the 2000 season. Acknowledging that the competitive landscape had shifted in a direction that the four-cylinder formula could not efficiently address. The sound of a Honda Goldwing approaching from a distance is unmistakable to anyone who has heard it before. The flat six engine's exhaust note at highway speed has a specific, deep, slightly muffled character that differs from the sound of any inline four or V-twin at the same road speed, and the acoustic envelope of a fully faired Goldwing at distance, where the fairing absorbs and redirects some of the mechanical noise and the engine note reaches the listener primarily through the exhaust, is specific enough to be identified before the machine is visible. Long-distance tours develop an awareness of other machines on the road through sound as well as sight, and the specific sound of a Goldwing is the sound of a machine that has been designed for long distance, that produces the engine note of a machine that has been optimized for sustained highway operation rather than peak power output, and that carries the acoustic signature of its specific engineering approach in a way that is audible from several hundred meters away. This is not a trivial quality. In the context of long-distance riding, the ability to identify the approach of specific types of machines is part of the general situational awareness that experienced riders maintain. And the Goldwing's distinctive sound contributes to its presence on the road in ways that go beyond the purely aesthetic. The Honda CB650 of 1979, not to be confused with the CB650R of the current generation, was a machine that Honda produced to address a specific gap in its lineup between the smaller CB400 and the larger CB750. The CB650 used an air-cooled inline-four engine in a conventional chassis and was intended to offer most of the performance of the CB750 in a slightly more compact and slightly less expensive package. Its reception was adequate rather than enthusiastic, and it was eventually replaced by the CB700 and then superseded by larger displacement machines that compressed the price difference between the mid-range and the flagship. The CB650 of 1979 is not a machine that is widely celebrated in Honda's history, and it does not appear prominently in the stories that Honda tells about itself. It existed because the market required it, and it fulfilled that requirement competently, without doing anything remarkable. In the story of any manufacturing company, this kind of machine, the one that fills a gap and does its job and is eventually replaced by something better, is the most common chapter and the least often told. The Honda Fireblade's development has been guided by a specific principle that Tadao Baba articulated and that subsequent development teams have maintained: mass centralization. The concept of mass centralization holds that the handling quality of a motorcycle is determined not only by the total weight of the machine, but by the distribution of that weight relative to the wheel axis and the center of gravity. A machine with its major masses, engine, gearbox, fuel, and rider, located close to the geometric center of the chassis, will change direction more quickly and precisely than a machine with the same total weight distributed further from the center. Honda's engineers have pursued mass centralization in the Fireblade across every generation, concentrating the engine and major drivetrain components as close to the machine's center as the mechanical requirements allow, and the result is a machine that feels lighter to ride than its weight would suggest, and that responds to rider inputs with a directness that heavier or more distributed machines do not provide. Mass centralization is one of those engineering concepts that sounds abstract until you experience its effect in a machine built around it, after which it becomes one of the most concrete and immediate qualities you notice in any motorcycle you subsequently ride. Like this video, if the night is going the way it should. It costs nothing, and it matters more than you'd think. The Honda CRF 1100L Africa Twin of the current generation is the most technically sophisticated dual sport machine Honda has produced for public sale, combining a 1084cc parallel twin engine with an available dual-clutch automatic transmission, a full suite of electronics including terrain response modes for sand, gravel, mud, and rock, a 21-inch front wheel for genuine off-road capability, and a chassis that can be specified with long travel suspension for serious off-road use or with standard suspension for predominantly road-going use. The machine represents the summit of 5 decades of Honda off-road motorcycle development in a single production vehicle, drawing on engineering traditions that trace through the XL series, the original Africa Twin, the Transalp, and the adventure motorcycle category that Honda helped create. It is a machine of genuine capability in the hands of riders who develop the skills to use it fully, and it is a comfortable and capable touring machine for riders who never leave the tarmac. This combination of capability across a wide range of conditions and riders is the Africa Twin's fundamental promise, and the current generation fulfills it more completely than any predecessor. The Honda Wing logo, which the company uses as the specific identifier of its motorcycle division and which appears on the Goldwing and on Honda's motorcycle promotional materials, has a specific history within the company's identity that is distinct from the main Honda H logo. The wing symbol references the aspiration to flight that was part of Soichiro Honda's personal philosophy and that found expression in the company's aviation activities alongside its motorcycle and automobile manufacturing. Honda has produced aircraft engines and, more recently, the Honda Jet business aircraft, and the wing symbol carries the connection between Honda's surface transportation products and its engagement with powered flight. For motorcycle riders, the wing is primarily the Goldwing's mark, associated with the specific culture of Goldwing touring that has developed around the model over nearly 5 decades. But the symbol carries more history than most riders who see it are aware of. The Honda Cub's step-through frame design, in which the rider can mount and dismount the machine without swinging a leg over a high seat or fuel tank, was a specific design choice made with a specific user in mind. In many of the markets where the Super Cub has been most widely adopted, including Japan in the 1950s and 1960s and Southeast Asia from the 1970s onward. A significant proportion of motorcycle riders wore traditional clothing that made the conventional step over mounting of a motorcycle difficult or inappropriate. The step-through frame allowed riders in kimonos, sarongs, and other traditional garments to use the machine comfortably, which significantly expanded the pool of potential users beyond those who could adapt their clothing to the machine's requirements. This specific engineering decision, born from attention to the actual clothing and customs of the people Honda wanted to reach, is one of the less discussed but more consequential design choices in the Super Cub's history. The machine's accessibility was not only mechanical, it was cultural, and the cultural accessibility was designed into the frame before a single unit was manufactured. The relationship between Honda's motorcycle racing activities and the development of safety equipment for riders is more direct than the connection between sport and safety might suggest in other contexts. Honda's research into the forces experienced by riders in crashes, conducted both through analysis of actual accidents and through controlled testing, has informed the development of airbag systems, body armor specifications, and helmet design parameters that have influenced the protective equipment available to road riders. The data generated by high-speed racing crashes, where the impact forces and impact patterns are documented with considerable precision by the safety infrastructure of the race venue, is among the most detailed available for understanding the mechanics of motorcycle accidents, and Honda's access to this data through its racing program has given the company's safety researchers information that pure road accident analysis could not have provided with the same quality and specificity. The connection between the violence of a MotoGP crash and the design of a motorcycle jacket available to an ordinary rider is indirect and mediated by many steps. But it is real, and the riders who benefit from improved protective equipment are in some sense beneficiaries of the crashes that generated the data behind the improvements. The night is quiet now, and the facts have been settling steadily for a long time. Honda's story does not have an ending that can be told from where we stand, because the story is still being written in every factory, on every test track, in every riding academy and research laboratory and service department the company operates around the world. The machines being built tonight will be ridden tomorrow by people who will form opinions and develop preferences and build relationships with their motorcycles that are specific and personal and that Honda's engineers will never directly observe. But those engineers will have shaped the conditions under which those relationships are possible. Through the decisions they made about engine architecture and chassis geometry and electronics calibration and fuel economy and every other dimension of the machine that reaches the rider through the physical contact of hands and feet and body on metal and rubber and the road. The 400 million motorcycles are out there. Each one is a specific machine with a specific history ridden by specific people in specific places at specific times. The number is too large to hold as a number. But each machine held specifically is just a motorcycle and a rider and a road. And that is, in the end, exactly what Honda set out to make possible when a man in post-war Japan attached a war surplus engine to a bicycle frame and sent the first one out into the world. Subscribe to the Sleepy Rider channel. The road keeps going, and so does this channel. Come back whenever you need it. Rest well. The Honda CBR 250R, introduced in 2011 for markets including India, Southeast Asia, and selected other regions, was developed specifically to address the needs of riders in markets where 250cc represented a significant and practical displacement ceiling rather than a stepping stone to something larger. In Japan and many Asian markets, licensing requirements and practical urban conditions make 250cc machines viable long-term options rather than temporary training machines, and the CBR 250R's single-cylinder engine, liquid cooling, and sporting aesthetics at an accessible price point made it a significant commercial success in its intended markets. The CBR 250R represents Honda's ability to calibrate product development to the specific requirements of a market rather than simply scaling down its larger market products. And the engineers who developed it worked from a detailed understanding of what 250cc riders in specific markets actually needed, including the specific road surfaces, traffic patterns, temperature ranges, and fuel quality variations of the regions where it would be used. The CBR 250R is one of those Honda products that is almost unknown in European and North American motorcycle culture, and that's sold in very large numbers in the markets where it was offered, which is itself a reminder of how limited the Western motorcycle press's coverage is of the full range of what Honda builds and sells globally. The Honda CB500F, the naked variant of the CB500 family, occupies a specific position in the current European market as the recommended choice for riders who have completed their initial license training and are moving to their first full license machine. The A2 license category in Europe restricts new riders to machines producing no more than 47 horsepower, and the CB500F sits comfortably within this limit while offering enough performance to remain satisfying as the rider's skills develop, and to encourage continued riding rather than an early sense that the machine has been outgrown. Honda calibrated the CB500F's engine and chassis specifically for the rider who is building confidence rather than demon-stiting it, with throttle response that is progressive and predictable rather than sharp and demanding, and handling that rewards smooth inputs rather than requiring aggressive ones. The result is a machine that new riders describe consistently as encouraging, a quality that is more difficult to engineer than it sounds because it requires a specific understanding of where a developing rider's limits are and how the machine should respond when those limits are approached. The Honda Monkey Cup, a racing series in Japan that uses mildly modified Honda monkey bikes as its competitive vehicles, has been running since 1975 and represents one of the more enduring forms of entry-level motorsport anywhere in the world. The Monkey Cup machines are essentially identical to the road-going monkeys from which they are derived, with modifications limited to safety equipment, exhaust systems, and a few minor performance items. The racing is consequently close, decided more by rider skill and strategy than by engineering advantage, and the format has provided a competitive environment for generations of Japanese riders who went on to compete in more powerful categories. Honda's support of the Monkey Cup series reflects the company's understanding that motorsport participation at the entry level serves the wider motorcycle community by developing rider skill, sustaining enthusiasm, and creating a pipeline of engaged riders who carry their involvement in motorcycling forward into adult riding life. The Monkey Cup is not a famous race series. It is a good one, and the distinction between fame and goodness is one that the motorcycle community navigates more honestly than most sporting cultures do. The specific way that Honda communicates its engineering philosophy through its motorcycle design, the tendency to make technical features visible and legible rather than concealing them behind bodywork, is one of the more consistent threads in the company's visual design history. The exposed engine of the CB series naked bikes, the visible gear-driven cam mechanism of the RC30 and RC45, the prominent exhaust headers of the CBX1000, the fuel cell of the RC213 VS visible through the bodywork at the front of the machine, all reflect a design sensibility that regards the mechanical content of the motorcycle as inherently interesting to look at rather than as something that needs to be hidden. This sensibility connects to Soichiro Honda's personal relationship with engines as objects of interest and beauty, and it has been maintained through the company's design culture in a way that distinguishes Honda's aesthetic from manufacturers who prefer to present their machines as smooth, enclosed objects whose mechanical workings are incidental to their appearance. A Honda engine in many of the company's most celebrated machines is as much a visual element as a functional one, and the engineers who design it know that what they make will be looked at as well as ridden. The Honda EV Cub concept, shown at the Tokyo Motor Show in 2015, previewed Honda's thinking about an electric version of the Super Cub and generated significant interest among observers who recognized the symbolic weight of applying electric power to the most consequential motorcycle in the company's history. The EV Cub concept used swappable battery packs rather than a fixed battery requiring charging infrastructure, addressing the specific challenge of electric vehicle adoption in markets where home charging is not practical for riders without dedicated parking or access to electrical outlets. The swappable battery approach, in which a depleted battery pack is exchanged for a fully charged one at a service point, in the same way that a fuel tank is refilled at a petrol station, addresses the range anxiety and charging infrastructure challenges of electric vehicles in a way that is particularly applicable to the Super Cub's markets. Honda has continued to develop swappable battery technology through its participation in a battery swapping consortium with several other manufacturers, and the eventual production version of an electric Cub remains one of the more significant products the company is likely to introduce in the coming years. The Honda RC233V's electronics package, which is the most sophisticated available on any production motorcycle and which draws on development work conducted in the MotoGP context, includes a combined IMU-based control system that manages traction control, cornering abs, engine braking, and power delivery across all 6 axes of motion simultaneously. The IMU, or inertial measurement unit, measures the motorcycle's lean angle, pitch, and yaw in real time, allowing the electronic systems to understand not only how fast the wheels are spinning, but what the machine is doing in 3-dimensional space, and to adjust the engine output and braking accordingly. This level of electronic sophistication represents the current frontier of what is possible in production motorcycle control systems, and its availability on a Honda that can be purchased by a private individual, albeit at a price that most private individuals cannot comfortably access, marks a specific point in the evolution of the relationship between factory racing technology and road-going machinery. The gap between what the factory team has and what the customer can buy has been narrowing for decades, and the RC213VS is the narrowest it has yet been. The Honda ST70 DAX, a small displacement minibike produced from 1969, became an unexpected cultural artifact in several European countries where it was sold in the 1970s as an inexpensive and easily transported recreational vehicle. The DAX's folding handlebars and compact proportions made it possible to carry in the boot of a car or in a small trailer. And the machine was marketed to boat owners, caravan users, and holiday makers as a fun and practical supplement to their recreational activities. In France and Germany particularly, the DAX developed a following that outlasted its original commercial context, and surviving examples are maintained and ridden today by people who find in the machine's combination of small-scale and genuine mechanical completeness something that larger, more capable machines do not replicate. The DAX is related in spirit, if not directly in lineage, to the monkey, and the community that has formed around both machines shares an appreciation for the specific pleasures of riding something tiny with its proportions in the right place, which is a pleasure that scales down rather than up with engine size. The Honda CBR 900RR's successor, the CBR 1000RR Fireblade, which arrived in 2004 with a larger engine and more power, represented a recalibration of the total control philosophy for a competitive landscape that had evolved since Tata Baba had articulated the original concept. By 2004, the 600cc class had advanced to a point where the performance gap between the Sports 600 and the litter class superbike had narrowed, and the Fireblade needed more capability to maintain its position. The 2004 Fireblade retained the emphasis on chassis balance and low weight that distinguished it from competitors who had pursued maximum power, but it also acknowledged that some increase in power was necessary to remain relevant. The balance Baba's team struck in the 2004 Fireblade. More power than before, but less than some competitors, with chassis dynamics that remained its primary selling point, reflected a genuine engineering philosophy rather than a reaction to competitive pressure alone. The 2004 Fireblade received widespread critical recognition as one of the finest sports motorcycles available at the time, which validated the philosophy even as the competitive landscape continued to evolve around it. The village of Tenryu in Shizuoka Prefecture near Hamamatsu was the birthplace of Soichiro Honda, and the Honda-related sites in the area, including the house where he was born and the blacksmith's workshop his father operated, have become informal pilgrimage destinations for Honda enthusiasts who want to understand the physical and cultural context from which the company emerged. The Japan of Soichiro Honda's childhood was a society in rapid transition from the traditional agricultural and craft economy of the 19th century to the industrial economy of the 20th. And the specific combination of traditional craft values and openness to new technology that characterized his father's generation in rural Shizuoka shaped Soichiro Honda's own approach to engineering in ways that he acknowledged explicitly in his later writings. The blacksmith's workshop where Soichiro Honda first encountered the making of things with hands and heat and material knowledge is the origin point of a lineage that runs through the Honda Technical Research Institute, through the original Dreams and Cubs and CB750s, through the V4 engines and the MotoGP championships, to the current generation of motorcycles being built in factories whose total area and employment Honda's father could not have imagined. The distance from the blacksmith's shop to the modern factory is the distance of one human lifetime well spent. The engine that Soichiro Honda built to power the first Honda motorcycles was, by his own description, not technically original. It drew on existing engineering knowledge, on what Honda had learned from the engines he had repaired and raced, and on what he had observed in the machines his competitors were building. What Honda contributed was not technical originality, but manufacturing quality and reliability standards that exceeded what his competitors were providing at equivalent prices. This is a distinction that Honda himself made clearly in his later accounts of the company's early history, and it is a distinction worth preserving because it explains the nature of Honda's early competitive advantage more accurately than accounts that attribute it to technological innovation. The innovation came later, and it came in specific and documented ways in specific machines. In the beginning, what Honda offered was better execution of known technology, and better execution of known technology is itself a form of engineering achievement that requires genuine capability to produce, and that the market rewards when it is delivered consistently. The Honda Wing Road Race Series, a one-make championship that Honda has sponsored in Japan since the 1970s, has provided a structured competitive environment for hundreds of Japanese riders across multiple generations and has served as a development platform for riders who subsequently moved into more prominent competitive categories. One Make series, in which all competitors use identical machinery provided by the sponsoring manufacturer, offer a specific form of competitive equity that removes the mechanical advantage as a variable and makes rider skill the primary determinant of results. For Honda, the Wing Road series serves multiple purposes simultaneously. It develops rider talent, it maintains engagement with the competitive community among riders who are not at the professional level. It provides a controlled environment in which Honda's engineers can observe how specific machines perform under competitive conditions. And it generates a community of active, engaged Honda enthusiasts who have a relationship with the brand that goes beyond ordinary ownership. The One Make series format is one of the more genuinely egalitarian structures in motorsport, and Honda's sustained commitment to it reflects an understanding of its value that goes beyond the immediate commercial benefit. The night has given you everything it had tonight. The engine note has been steady and the facts have been coming since the first quiet moment after you settled in. And the road that Honda has built its story on is longer than any single night can cover. There is always more. There is always another machine, another engineering decision, another moment when someone in a factory or a laboratory or on a test track understood something new about what a motorcycle could be or do or mean to the person riding it. Honda's 400 million motorcycles are not a number. They are 400 million specific experiences of motion and weather and road surface and engine sound and the particular state of mind that follows a certain number of miles at a certain time of day in a certain place. Honda built the conditions for those experiences. The riders brought the experiences into being. Between them, they have created something that no specification sheet or production figure can fully describe, which is the ongoing fact of people moving through the world on machines that someone cared enough about to make as well as they could be made. This channel exists for the people who think about these things when the day is done. Subscribe and stay on the road with it. Rest now. The bike will be here in the morning. The Honda CB650R's position within the current lineup illustrates something specific about how Honda thinks about the relationship between its product range and its customer base. The CB650R sits above the CB500 family in displacement and sophistication and below the CB1000R in size and price, occupying a middle ground that is both commercially important and technically interesting. Riders who have developed genuine competence on 500cc machines and who want more capability without the weight and cost of a full liter class naked bike find in the CB650R, a machine that acknowledges their development rather than demanding another step up to something larger than they want. The four-cylinder engine provides a character and a rev range that the CB500's parallel twin does not offer, and the chassis is capable enough that experienced riders can explore its limits without finding them disappointingly close. The CB650R exists because Honda understands that rider development is not a linear progression toward the largest displacement available, and that many riders reach a point at which the CB650R category is exactly what they want to stay with, indefinitely, because it suits the kind of riding they do and the kind of rider they are. Designing for this rider with the same seriousness that Honda designs for the competitive racer and the long-distance tourer is one of the less obvious but genuinely important aspects of the company's approach to its product range.